Inside the Birds is back. Welcome everybody to Inside the Birds pregame live here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave, where Philly loves a winner. I am Jeff Mosher, of course, co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, alongside this man right here, Adam Kaplan. Back once again after a 1-week sabbatical is our buddy Greg Cosell. He was playing hooky. He decided to come back.
Come on now, Jeff.
Nah, I had to actually work a little bit.
Yeah. He needed a little dig to start the show.
He does work, believe it or not.
He works hard. I'll give him that. Yeah, I'll give him that. And will be with us soon, is former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant. Traffic is a little bad out there. He'll be getting here soon and joining us for the show. We are back at Jack's Bar and Grill here in Rivers Sportsbook and Casino to preview a big, monumental Week 4 showdown between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles at the Link, where the Eagles have not won a 1 p.m. game since 2019.
That's true?
That's a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It is,
Somebody did their research this week.
November 3rd, 2019 against the Bears. Now, they've won here.
Holy smokes.
But they were night games. They have not won a 1 o'clock game here since 2019. And there's more history kind of on the line as Andy Reid comes back to Philadelphia with 99 overall wins as a Kansas City Chiefs head coach, 1 win shy of becoming the first coach in NFL history to win 100 games with 2 different franchises. If that's not impressive, I mean, he's going to get it. I don't know if it comes today. Probably does. We'll talk about that, but that's really damn impressive.
Yes, it is.
It is. In fact, I was just thinking as you said that, Don Shula obviously did it with the Dolphins, but I guess he wasn't around long enough with the Colts to do it. But
right.
Wow, that is so hard to do. And I was thinking as you said that, in 2012, his last year with the Eagles and how tough it was. Mm-hmm. And then you see how, remember now, Jeff, after he was let go by Jeffrey Lurie after 2012, a lot of his friends came to him and said, listen, you need to just take the year off. You need to sort of unwind and recharge. He didn't do that.
Right.
He didn't do that. Right. And he was right. And did you see how quickly they turned things around in Kansas City with Andy?
Well, the one thing I always think about with Andy, he didn't just go to Kansas City and then be the Eagles coach in Kansas City. He changed. I mean, his offense changed. He hired Chris Ault from Nevada to implement the pistol. He traded for Alex Smith. He started to do more of the college game stuff that you saw proliferating in the NFL that really wasn't going on here. It almost like he did a lot of soul searching, Greg, and decided he needed to make some changes too.
Well, it's funny, but a lot of the core pass game concepts remain the same. Mm-hmm. It's what he did is he added a lot of other things like motion, different formations, that make it more difficult to get a read on what the basic pass game concepts are.
Sure. Speaking of motions and shifts, coming right across the line of scrimmage and lining up in the slot as he always does is former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant, also co-host of the Q&A show on Inside the Birds with Quentin Michael. Jason, we were just talking about Andy Reid being 1 win away from being the first NFL coach in the history of the game to have 100 wins for 2 different franchises. Yeah. And we were just talking about the difference of Andy Reid kind of at the end here, which you got to witness firsthand, to the Andy Reid who just was kind of reborn in Kansas City.
Well, I got a chance to witness both, right? So him with the Eagles, and then my last 2 years was in Kansas City with him. And the biggest thing that I can give you guys inside information on is that Andy didn't have to deal with personnel decisions anymore when it came to the Chiefs. Right here, when Tom Hecker was let go and it was Howie Roseman, Andy started to do more personnel management than coaching.
Right.
So therefore, he handed the offense over to Marty Morningwig completely, and it was less Andy. Now Andy is installing every meeting, every game plan. He's in the X's and O's, and that's what he does best. And he's giving that responsibility off to Brett Veach, I believe it is now.
Yes, yep.
But at the time, it was the guy Dorsey. It was Dorsey at the time.
Yep.
So that's what makes it a little bit different. But it's an outstanding thing that he's been able to accomplish, and it's great to see him where he is now. He doesn't have, no offense to Philly fans at all, but there's a lot of pressure in this area. In Kansas City, it's less pressure, and
more
he's
barbecue.
able, more barbecue, more Tommy Bahama shirts. He's having a great time.
Hey, don't knock Tommy Bahama shirts.
We've all had to wear them.
Half zip.
Yeah, those are great, aren't they? Oh, yeah.
Well, obviously, a little bit of history for both teams here. Andy Reid, we just mentioned the milestone he's searching for. And Jason, I'm not sure if you heard what we've said before, but the Eagles have not won a home game at 1 o'clock since the 2019 season. So, yeah, it's been that long.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
No, that can't be
1
right.
o'clock home game. They beat the Saints last year at 4 o'clock. They
my
beat the Giants and the
gosh.
Cowboys in the night games. So you got to go all the way. Remember, they only won 4 games last year.
They had a tie at
and
home,
they had
though.
a tie. So it's not a losing streak.
Tie at 1
It's
o'clock.
a winless streak.
Right.
It's early too because the team practices at a certain time, and Coach Reid was kind of strict about when they practice, trying to time it up with the time of the 1 o'clock game.
Right.
But now they're trying to make sure players don't get in trouble, so they're extending the practices a little bit longer, and you get done at 4 or 5, and so guys don't get in trouble anymore.
right.
So if they bring the practice up earlier, it may change the outcome of some of these games.
Sure. So it's a quick turnaround, obviously, for the Eagles. They're 1-2, coming off a 20-point blowout to the Dallas Cowboys. It's also a difficult time for the Chiefs. They're also 1-2, surprisingly, although they've played a pretty tough schedule. Lost to the Chargers, lost a close one to the Ravens. Clearly, their strength of schedule a little bit different than the Eagles, but they are 1-2. So the law of averages has to give in for one of these teams tonight. The law of averages could help you out. You can come down here if it's not been the greatest weekend, and you can place a wager on any of the teams, including the Eagles here. Enjoy yourself at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. They've got a wonderful sportsbook with enormous flat screen TVs, all high def, very easy computers to place a wager at, booths to wager, great food, great drinks, great atmosphere. Bring your friends. Come on down. Come see the show as we record here any Sunday that we're here. It's just an awesome place to be on a football Sunday. Also, if you're watching at home, please take a minute now to share this, like it on YouTube. Leave a chat on YouTube. We'll try to answer your question or get to your comment throughout the show. But please do share the show on whatever platform you're sharing it on or you're watching it on. We appreciate that. We're going to start off the show like we always do with the big breaking news of the day. And, of course, the Eagles, some good health news, which hasn't been the case the last 2 weeks. But they will get Rodney McLeod back to their secondary. Now, how much he'll play, we don't know. He obviously tore his ACL against the Saints last year. He is back now. He practiced all week in a full fashion, which is the first time they've been able to do that. And it should be him in some variety or some capacity today. Adam, what else do you know about Rodney McLeod's return?
Yeah, I believe he got some work with the first-team defense, but here's the thing is I don't know what that means. Does it mean he'll get 30 snaps, 50 snaps if they play 60 on defense? I don't know yet because it's his first game in, over 9 months? Mm-hmm. And to come back from an ACL injury and not have any preseason or training camp, all you've done is really rehab, it's tough to expect him to play a ton of snaps today. And even if he does, how effective is he going to be?
Right.
It's been quite the absence, but as you and I were talking about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had heard that Dickerson was ahead of McLeod on his rehab. So I'm interested to see today. The game A obviously means very much, and you know what's coming here with Andy Reid,
right,
with this offense. So it's a tough challenge for McLeod.
I mean, we've seen Dickerson come back and be either, whether you want to call it rust or just getting his feet of the NFL under him. But for Rodney to come back from his second ACL tear in 3 years, to be north of 30, and then have to go out there against a Chiefs defense that can stretch you every which way. I don't know if I'd be surprised that he starts, but I do have to question how many snaps he's going to be able to play and how he'll hold up. And then how they use him. Is he a deep post safety anymore, or is he a box safety?
Well, they don't play a lot of single highs.
They don't. No. Right. So
I mean,
the
first three games are predictive of anything that's going to continue to happen. They're going to play split safety coverage, and it's going to be zone.
Now, he used to play a lot of deep safety coverage when Jim Schwartz. Does it help him out to only have to patrol half a field now?
Well, last year, Rodney had to be in the box a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
So this helps him out, help the Eagles out a bunch, because if you're going to play split safety, main cover 4,
right,
the safety is responsible to be in the box for the run game. So a guy that's aggressive coming down into the box helps our team out. Our guys that we have now are not aggressive enough in getting into the box in time. Mm-hmm. Couple that with linebackers that are not being able to fill gaps and holes. It's not a good solution. So him being back and being able to fill and cover 4 is actually a good thing for the Eagles.
Absolutely, and we are going to get into that run defense, that box defense that you're talking about, and some of the issues the Eagles have been having. good to see Rodney McLeod back. I think from a leadership standpoint, just to have, a veteran out there, kind of making calls and kind of helping out the young players on the team.
Without Brandon Graham, that's exactly it.
Yes.
And I know Brandon Graham's really underrated against the run, and that we'll get into that later.
Yes.
But just to have someone who's been there and done it before, he's part of the Super Bowl run, right?
Right.
There are not a lot of guys left who've done that. And to have him back, and you talk about his leadership, it's certainly needed after they got smoked on Monday night.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The big question injury-wise really is on the offensive line, that someone has to replace Isaac Seumalo today. Nick Sirianni, who was very forthcoming with information about Landon Dickerson the week before, much less forthcoming this week on what his plans are. He has the option of keeping Landon Dickerson at right guard and then putting in a Nate Herbig at left guard, or knowing that Brandon Brooks will be returning, or is expected to sometime this season, he could have started the process of moving Landon Dickerson to left guard today and then just fill the right guard spot with Nate Herbig. And of course, there's the wild card, which is Jack Driscoll, who was activated into the practice window this week and then put on the active roster yesterday, and is a guy who started 4 games last year, played in 11, and when you compare him to Nate Herbig, we know that Jeff Stoutland really likes we really likes Jack Driscoll,
he loves it.
They've been cross-training him at guard, so it's kind of in the air today about what they do with Jack Driscoll.
It's interesting because if you look at Dickerson's college career, 2019 he played 4 games. He started at right guard at Alabama.
Right.
The rest were at center.
I'm sorry, Dickerson.
Dickerson. So to move him to left guard, I don't know about that, but Jason said, I know you said this before, Jack Driscoll is Jeff Stoutland's guy. This is a guy he pushed for in the draft. He has not made it any secret how much he likes him. In his little Zoom session with the media, talked about in August. So if you're going to activate him after 5 days of practicing, after he just came back from a pectoral injury, how could he not be active today? Jack Driscoll.
Right.
And same with also Josiah Scott. They didn't really need to activate him. My understanding was he probably could have played last week. He had a 2 to 3 week hamstring injury. So now they have some depth there. We don't know how good he's going to be, but they have depth there. So these are good things. With all the injuries they've had, at least guys are coming back.
Jay, I know you're not an offensive lineman, but as a professional athlete, former professional athlete, when you have a pec strain, the way Jack Driscoll had, does that preclude you from being able to lift weights until that thing is
Well, it all depends
healed?
on how serious it is, but you really can't function as offensive lineman with a serious pec strain,
right?
Because you have to use that in your punch, right? And guys pressing against you, you getting entangled with guys, and then pulling jerseys and all those things. It doesn't mesh. So for him to be coming back, it's at a point where they feel it's safe. He won't have as much strength on that side, but guys get away with. They come up with alternative methods in order to get blocks. Remember, blocking ultimately is about keeping your body in front of people, and if he can do that, we'll be fine.
Well, we will see today if Jack Driscoll is either activated for depth or if they have plans to start him over Nate Herbig. We'll get those answers later, and obviously maybe the inactives will tell us some of the plans there. As far as other Eagles injuries, I mean, most people know the big ones. We know Isaac Seumalo is going to be out for the year with the Achilles. Jordan Mailata missing his 2nd straight game with the MCL sprain. Looks like Andre Dillard, well, it's definitely Andre Dillard who will start left tackle. Do we think Jordan Mailata could be ready for next Sunday's game in Carolina?
The way it was explained to me is he had a 1 to 3 week injury, so maybe he starts practicing this week.
Okay.
To the MCL sprain. Oh, by the way, Seumalo's is a Liz Frank.
Right.
That one is the bad one. That's the 9-month one. When he'll be, it's 7 to 9 months is the area. So you're not going to see him until the spring. So that'll be interesting to see what they do with him when he comes back, because then they'll have decisions to make if Kelsey does not, if he retires, and then if he doesn't have retired. That's going to be a big stir of the offseason.
Yep.
And then Brandon Brooks, 6 to 8 week injury for the pectoral strain. So hopefully he's back for the Eagles' sake around mid-season. Remember, the Eagles' bye is not to week 14.
Right.
So they don't have that option to work them out. Yeah, that's a late one.
Bye.
That's a tough buy. Exactly.
Right, with a 17-game schedule. So those are the injuries. You're right.
Wow.
Yeah. The good thing with the injuries are, okay, we know who's out. No one else. All the other guys with injury designations, they don't have a status. So they're all going to play. Dickerson with a hip, that's a new injury.
Yeah.
Johns with ankle, that's a new injury. Kelsey, he had last week. He's playing. Davion Taylor, they miss him on special teams. They feel he's their fastest special teams player. And then Marcus Epps, who's got this lingering shoulder injury, but he will be available today.
So all those guys will be available. I would say the ones to look out for, Lane Johnson with the ankle, only because he had the ankle surgery last year, or 2 of them in the long run. And then, of course, Davion Taylor, they keep trying to get onto the field with the calf, and he keeps coming off the field with the calf. So obviously 2 big ones there. For the Chiefs, they will be without one of their big playmakers on defense or pass rushers in Frank Clark. He is out with a hamstring strain. And obviously cornerbacks Rashad Fenton and Chardarius. Is it Chardarius or Chardarius?
Charvarius
Ward. Also out. So the Chiefs are out 2 of their top 4 cornerbacks in this game. Something to keep an eye on there. And obviously, second-year defensive end Mike Dana will start in place of Frank Clark. That's kind of a big drop-off, I would think, a big loss for the Chiefs. Frank Clark is a big, tough, nasty, physical defensive lineman.
Yeah, he's had this lingering hamstring problem. He missed a game earlier this season. And the other thing is, I would love to know what Greg thinks about this. The big move for them, and I didn't see this come, is moving Chris Jones, their outstanding D tackle, at the end. So, Greg, you've seen this guy. You've seen Chris Jones for many years, number 95, playing on the outside. How does he look at DN?
And I've talked to some people about it as well, because I don't feel that he's really as good on the outside as he is on the inside. Now, they may play him there, and there are certain matchups they may feel comfortable with, but overall, I think he's a better player inside and a better pass rusher inside.
Right. I mean, he's been a defensive tackle even throughout college, for most of his career.
When he came out of Mississippi State, the feeling about Chris Jones was the talent level jumped off the film.
Right.
The concern with him, which I couldn't speak to because I'm not there every day and don't know the player individually, was the concern was would he be competitive snap after snap after snap. And I'm sure, Adam, you remember those conversations that scouts had.
Yep.
And in the NFL, he's been much more of that player that plays all the time.
Right.
But he's really a dominant inside player.
And he's playing left defensive end, which means he'll go up against Lane Johnson today.
Interesting matchup there. All right, one to keep an eye on. Look, for the Eagles, they did sign guard Sua Opeta from the practice squad, made a few signings back to the practice squad also. Cam Malveaux, Casey Tucker is back. And as we mentioned, Jack Driscoll and Josiah Scott are active, and we'll see if they get a chance to play. Before we get into this thing, please remember, share this show now if you get a chance. In fact, I'm going to hit the retweet on our own feed right here, just so that everybody knows this is where it's at. This is where the breakdown's going to be. We got a lot to talk about today, and it starts with the red alert, Big Red coming into town. But really, the focus is not Big Red. It's on Nick Sirianni, because he learned a painful lesson this week, fellas, about what happens when you lose that badly to the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, what happens when you lose and only run the ball 3 times, just twice with Miles Sanders. Not even Andy Reid or Doug Peterson has coached the Eagles game where they only ran the ball with a running back 2 or 3 times in a game. Adam, I like the way you phrased it earlier this week, because what you said on the Inside the Birds podcast was, it's not like Dallas's defense is the the stingiest defense in the league. So yeah, you fell down by 2 possessions early, but it's not like you needed to completely abandon whatever game plan you went in with. And you had
Although I don't know what the game plan was.
Well, that's I was going to say, you had some people questioning
It
that.
appeared it was not to run the ball.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And I think you said
Sanders had his first carry on the 4th Eagles possession.
How does that happen?
I just want to say one thing.
Yes.
You're talking about the old Cowboys defense. I've watched them all 3 weeks on film. This is a totally different defense. They're much, much better. They're much faster. I'm not going to sit here and say they'll be a top 2 or 3 defense in the league.
Right.
But this is not the same defense from a year ago that most people who are not following this and don't watch tape probably thought they were.
Correct. But what we mentioned on the pregame show, Greg, was that defensive line was beat up and depleted. Right. And while the Eagles' offensive line had injuries too, there was a clear size and mass differential between one versus the other, and that's where the running game kind of come to play.
There was a significant quickness differential that favored the Cowboys.
That's a fair point. That is true. Yeah, that is true.
But again, you've got Miles Sanders, who everything we're told looks great in practice. There's no reason not to give him the football. They were down 20-7 halftime. Yes, they threw the pick 6, and that kind of, when you go down by 20,
that does change things.
That does change things. But during the first half, it was competitive enough where they could have run the ball. I'm not saying it can't be 60-40 pass run, but to not run the ball at all, I've not seen anything like that. And as Greg said, Sanders did not get a carry till the 4th series.
And it was a 24-yard run, his first
beautiful,
carry.
Right up there, made a little wiggle move. Right. I don't understand that.
Well, Jay, what did you think, not just on that, but I don't know if you heard Nick Sirianni's press conferences this week, but he kind of said, he talked about the RPOs in the offense and that many of them are supposed to be runs, they turn into passes, and that if that happens and the ratio is lopsided, he's okay with that.
Nah, that's BS to me.
That's what I thought.
Just to me, that's BS. You have to, running the football in this league is intentional. It's not something that's happenstance or, you give the quarterback the option to. You have to be intentional about running the football, and then clearly we weren't intentional about running the football. what perplexes me is that going into that game, the Eagles were second in the league in rushing, behind the Ravens, and you go into that game and you don't rush it. And him in Indianapolis, he ran the ball. So to me, it was more to that than just Nick Sirianni. And a lot of that's a conspiracy theory and things of that nature, but to me, it was more to it than Nick Sirianni. And that's just me, based on what he did in Indianapolis last year, based on our first 2 games, and then not to run the ball at all. Something was to that, to me, just to me.
I got you. I got you.
I couldn't agree more. that running the ball is intentional and it's a mindset.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help thinking, watching that game, because it was against Dallas. You know, Dak Prescott came into this league as a 4th-round pick, and there were many questions about Dak Prescott's ability to be a quality or a high-level NFL quarterback.
Right.
He certainly reached that point now. But what happened in his first year? In his first year, they had a good O-line. They had Zeke, okay?
Right.
And then Miles Sanders is a pretty darn good back.
Yeah.
And what did they do? They put Dak under center, and don't forget he played almost exclusively in the gun in college.
Sure.
So it can be done. They put him under center, and they ran the football.
Right.
And that was the foundation of their offense. So I was watching this game on Monday night, and I was thinking to myself, I kind of feel that would be, and this is me, I'm not there every day, so I don't want people to think, hey, I'm smarter than the coaches. I'm just, here I am, you know, I study tape, I watch not just the Eagles, I watch every team in the league.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, I think they need to line up, put Hurts under center, and run the football. And then get the play-action pass game that way, which, by the way, defines reads and throws for the quarterback very cleanly. Right?
Facts.
So, right.
You're speaking truth.
Right.
Yeah,
So to me, that's what I'd like to see them do more of that.
Do you think, this is obviously just an opinion based on what we know from the past, Jalen Hurts was a very successful RPO quarterback in Oklahoma. The data says that he did some of his best work through the RPO.
Right.
Nick Sirianni, coming from Indianapolis, they did not do a whole lot of RPOs there. So people wondered if Nick was going to incorporate that into this offense. So here's an example of a coach.
No, it's funny you say that, because down the stretch last year in Indianapolis, and of course Phillip Rivers and Jalen Hurts are 2 totally different guys.
Right.
But Rivers was under center, and the foundation of their offense down the stretch into the playoffs before they lost to Buffalo was Jonathan Taylor.
Taylor.
He averaged, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I bet over the last 7-8 games of the season through the playoff loss, he probably averaged 18, 19 carries a game.
Sure. So I'm wondering, though, is the coach just trying to adapt his scheme to his personnel and then maybe going a little overboard, trying to do that too much?
Well, I'm sure the feeling is, and Jason could probably address this as well, is that Hurts is not that guy. You know, that his whole career, for the most part, has been a shotgun quarterback or a pistol quarterback, with RPOs being a factor. But an RPO, to me, I couldn't agree more with what Jason said. An RPO, to me, is not a mindset run game.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not.
No.
It isn't. And I go as far as to say this may have been a Jalen Hurts test game. That I will go that far to see
against Dallas.
Against Dallas, to see if we can depend on this guy going forward. If the game is on the line, can his arm get us there? That's what it looked like to me, because you don't abandon this guy who technically, or he's a second-year quarterback, but he's really a first-year quarterback.
This was his 7th start.
His 7th start. So you protect him with the run. You do his best as you can as a coach to get the ball out of his hands and make it a balanced attack. You don't put him in a situation where he's freaking Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or whoever else. It was just, I don't think that this was so intentional to me that it was beyond just, we didn't pay attention to the RPO and the run balance, the ratio. No, this seems like this was planned. That's what it seemed like to me.
Off what Jason just said, I did want to add this. When you look at quarterbacks, and you mentioned Brady and Rodgers, some quarterbacks do not need a run game.
We should probably not be mentioning them in the same
breath. No. You could go through.
Derek Carr had a pretty interesting stat this week.
But he did. But you could go through 10 to 12 quarterbacks and say, you know what, they don't need a run game. They're elite, they're great. When a guy's only started 7 games, he's not playing well, he needs a run game. He's not to the point, nowhere close to the point where you can say, you know what, I think we could let loose 35 to 38 passes today. I think he could handle that if we need to. He's not even remotely close to that. Now, the game against Arizona, he did a good job last year when he had to throw the ball.
Yeah.
But that's one game. Right now, he's not playing like that. So, Jeff, to answer this and just move this along here, They must run the football. And I'm not a run game guy at all.
Right.
But this, you've got to help your
have that
quarterback.
balance.
But you know, you have to understand too.
You have to understand where you're at with
Look what the Packers did on Monday night against the Lions 2 weeks ago.
Right. They saw all those split safety looks,
and they handed the ball off, and they have Aaron Rodgers. Okay,
right.
so.
Right.
You do need a run game. Now, you can debate what that means. Your whole offense is not just the run game,
right.
but you need a run game somewhere along the line.
Absolutely.
It has to be part of your offense. We can debate volume numbers and how much. That's a secondary question.
Even Peyton Manning had Adrian James and Joseph Adai.
James had 300 carries in those years.
Exactly. Yeah. I know a game's changed, but
even late, they were efficient running the football.
Right.
They were efficient. They didn't run it a bunch, but they were efficient.
So if the game plan itself was a little bit perplexing, or a lot. You have to hear what Nick Sirianni had to say about why he's not using any pre-snap motion or as much as we maybe thought, or even as most teams are in the league. In fact, he was asked specifically about no motion against Dallas, where I believe that there was zero motion in the offense, pre-snap movement. And here's what the Eagles coach had to say.
We motion for a very distinct reason. We're going to motion if we can create an advantage, if we can figure out what defense they're in, if we majorly those two things, if we can get a guy in position to do his job better. So we're not a team that's going to motion to motion. We're going to do it for those three main reasons. We find different ways to give him the coverage indicators. We're fighting like crazy to get that, many different ways, and there's different ways to get it. In fact, I think defenses have gotten a lot better in general, taking away some of the motion, like the one that you saw a lot that I've seen over and over again is you're in 3-by-1, you put the back out wide, create empty, you bring them home. Well, defenses are really, they know what you're doing, and they've gotten better at disguising that. I'm not saying that's why we're not doing it, but they have gotten better at disguising it.
All right, that was Eagles coach Nick Sirianni, and you got the hands and the this and the that, and he's telling everything. And at the end, Greg, what I thought was interesting, he says, we're not going to motion to motion. We're just, we have our tells other ways. And he almost insinuated that the rest of the league is sort of catching up to this pre-snap motion thing anyway.
If the question is, you can't be a good offense without motion, I think that's wrong. I think you can be a good offense many ways. Now, it seems in vogue that motion has been in the league, and a lot of people on social media, writers, whatever, they talk about NFL offenses as if you don't motion, you can't play offense. That's not necessarily true. Now, Jason can speak to this. Motion can be a factor, no question, because in many ways motion, and I think we spoke about this 2 weeks ago, you talked about it. Motion can regulate the defense to some degree. Motion is a way to get to plays concepts that you like to run differently. Right. So you show something different to the defense, and then you get to your base plays. But it's not a mathematical equation. It's not, if you don't motion, you have no offense.
Correct.
So, I mean, that can be an overblown thing.
Sure, but to the point, I mean, if I have a quarterback who can run the way Jalen Hurts can run, and I have the opportunity to get the defense looking one way and then use my quarterback in rollouts or on read option, running play, isn't it? Wouldn't it be beneficial?
Here is where this team needs motion. We don't get open particularly well. We have smaller receivers, Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith. They need free access.
Sure.
Getting down into a bunch, getting down and across where the guy loosens up across for them only helps this offense. Gaining a man, clicking shoulders with the guy. Touchdown Devontae Smith with Zach Ertz in the first game. That's designed, that can be designed through motion, those types of plays. So we need this. We don't have Peyton Manning where he can observe the field with no motion and he doesn't want the motion and he can be able to figure it out with his brain only. This team and Jalen Hurts, this offense, with the way it's constructed, needs motion. And without it, they won't be as successful. But I agree with you that there's a lot of teams that may not need motion because they have dogs on the outside.
Right.
You put receivers out there, tight ends, they win their one-on-one matchups. We don't have guys that have been proven to win their one-on-one matchup, except for Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and maybe Miles Sanders. Everyone else is still a question. Quez is getting to that point where I believe that he can win a one-on-one matchup.
Well, it's funny you say that because one of the things, and Adam knows this because I spoke about this a lot leading up to the draft, we know Devonta Smith has excellent receiving skills. That's not the question. But he's 158 pounds. and he's a strider. He needs free access off the line of scrimmage. That's the way you would maximize his ability. Now, he's been playing a lot of boundary X, and he's gotten off some press okay, and other times he's been shoved quite a bit. He needs free access off the ball.
I want to actually ask Jason this, because based on what Greg was just saying, someone who watched the tape this past week mentioned this to him. He said that Smith needs to play through contact better. What does that mean to you, Jason, when you hear that?
Yeah, so when somebody's touching them, are you pushing them outside of their area, right? Because remember, we talked about this a few weeks ago. If a guy engages you and he pushes you 3 yards in one direction, you're off your pattern completely. You're next to another offensive player. You're in a different zone.
Or you're at the sideline.
You're at the sideline, whatever it is. The Jalen Reagor getting pushed out, in San Francisco. Like, so those things got to play through contact a little better. It also delays you getting down the field, right? So when there's delays on offense, the triangle is not there, you're not in the right position for the route that's coming behind you. So that's what that means.
And a follow-up to that, on the interception, the short ball, okay, the first interception, should Reagor have deflected that, do you think? Or was he not in position to do that? Is that a tough call?
This play for me pisses me off. This one
right,
here,
go ahead.
out of all the plays in the game.
Hold on, is that popcorn ready?
I was wondering, this play, out of all the plays in the game, because we talked about it in the first game of how Reagor got pushed out on the sideline, he ran around. This particular route, he ran around again, right? It's still off. You still run tight to the defender and you try to pass him as close as possible. A lot of people say, okay, you can throw the ball to the back of the end zone. If the defender feels like he can look up and track the ball, that means he's in good position.
He's in phase.
He's in phase with you. Defenders don't look up for the ball unless they know they're in a comfortable position, right? So he didn't do what it took in order to win. And that ball hung up there for years. And as a receiver in that position, there's no way that ball is intercepted.
Right.
As a quarterback, I remember John Navarre telling me, listen, in practice, I got the ball floated up there like that, a guy picked it. He's like, man, I'll never throw you the damn ball again if that happens again. I'll never throw it to you. I throw it to Braden Edwards every time. Because if that ball's up in the air and I give you a shot, either you come down with it or nobody comes down with it.
Right.
And from that day on, I realized, man, this is not just about me. This is about the team. It's on the line. He had an opportunity to save the play, and he did not. And part of the reason he did not was because he lost the route. Because of bad technique.
And by the way, I think, and Jason obviously knows this better than I, but I've studied this for a lot of years, I think that's been an issue with Reagor going back to last year. When he has excellent speed, and in fact, he did separate very late in that route. The ball lost energy and was underthrown, but he has a bad tendency, and to me, this can be fixed. But he has a bad tendency when he lines up with a plus split, meaning he's closer to the sideline, to immediately run to the sideline. And that limits the quarterback's ability to throw the ball to you. There's not as much space. It slows down your route. You just get pushed right to the sideline.
Sure.
I think he's done that too much. But last year he did it, and I kind of said, okay, he'll learn. You know, he's a rookie. That's something that he'll work through. But he's done it this year too.
So guys do what they do in practice. Remember, practice is repetition. Repetition over and over again, right? So as a coach, when you see it, you constantly try to get the guy to do it the right way in practice. In the game, you want him just to do it naturally, right? So this is just letting us know that in practice is not being corrected, so it's showing itself in the game.
I do want to talk a little later in our show about how they're using Jalen Reagor as opposed to just, what he's doing out there, but the way they're getting the ball in their hands. Real quick, as we talk about that interception from Jalen Hurts, obviously, last game, not his best game. He has popularized the phrase here, the rent is due, and he doesn't plan to make missed payments. I think we can say the rent has been late for the last 2 weeks. It certainly hasn't been his best performance, and you can argue about whether or not he's being put in a great position to succeed, which we've just talked about. But there were throws that were just off the mark. There were throws that were underthrown. There were times where he left the pocket where it seemed like kind of quickly he was doing that. Adam, I wanted to ask you, based on people that you've talked to around the league who've seen the tape, what is it that they've detected from Jalen the last 2 weeks?
Greg talked about the arm strength, and so did Jason. He also has, we haven't talked about this much, but he's got issues with his mechanics, his base, where he sets his feet. This is a common issue with him because he cannot drive the football without everything together. It's not Josh Allen who just stand there without stepping into it and then flick it down 50 yards downfield. His mechanics need to be better.
Right.
Something I'm going to watch as we go forward here.
He's not a natural thrower.
That's the other part. He's a little. And
We
Jeff,
talked about that with the wind-up and the.
You want to know? Speaking of that, in the spring, what did you talk about? What did you learn about that? The wind-up.
Yeah, I just know that when he had gotten here last year, both I believe last staff and this staff is the wind-up a little bit. Not where you hold the ball, because Nick Sirianni has said he's not all about trying to change that.
Point, right.
But more about when your delivery and your efficiency with your delivery.
It's funny you say that, because that's where in my notes when I evaluated coming out of Oklahoma, I said that he had a tendency to drop the ball to his waist, and that gets exacerbated when there's bodies around you, because he's not a natural snap thrower of the football.
Right.
When he's very comfortable and there's no one around him, he'll look better. All quarterbacks will look better in that situation. But when he's under a little duress and he has to throw, he reverts back to the fact that he drops the ball near his waist.
Yeah, a lot of times when you drop the ball near your waist, you're building momentum. Right, it's a lack of arm strength. Right, you're trying to when the quarterback coach is telling you to keep your arms up, it takes a certain arm strength in order to get that ball out. So when you're dropping, you're trying to build that momentum, but it takes more time. Right. And so that's one of those things.
So Nick Sirianni was asked this week about off-script plays versus scripted plays, and he made the point of saying that when he had Phillip Rivers, only about 14% of the plays that Phillip Rivers would run would be off-script. Whereas with Jalen Hurts...
That many?
That high? I was shocked it was that high. I know.
That's a lot, right?
That's a lot for Phillip Rivers.
With Jalen Hurts, the number was about 50% last year, and they were trying to get him somewhere closer to 35%. They don't want to make him into Phillip Rivers, where you're not using your elusiveness at all, but they do want him to stick more to the script than he has been. And then Jalen Hurts was asked about that in particular. He gave kind of an interesting answer. I want everybody to hear what Jalen Hurts had to say.
I think what matters is however it unfolds, throughout the game, however the plays are made. We just want to get positive plays, keep the sticks moving, and win. No one really cares how it looks.
All right, that was Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. What stuck out to me, and look, I get at this point that he is not giving a whole lot to the media. He doesn't really open up a lot. Didn't expect an hour dissertation on scripted versus off-script plays. But when he says that it doesn't really matter how it looks as long as we win, I would argue I don't think that's true from a coaching standpoint. I think they want to win, but they want you to win via the script. If you win too much off script, I feel like that's not a formula for consistency.
Yeah, because the knock on him is progression reading. It is with generally young quarterbacks. You want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of 1, 1.5, and then run. Right. This past game, he bailed way too much. Greg, you've come up with that term, and I love it, is second reaction, right?
Right.
A lot of quarterbacks do this. He's gotten away with it sometimes, but he's not sometimes. Is he a big second reaction quarterback right now?
Here's what you hope, but it doesn't always work, and it can work, but you hope that quarterbacks who have great movement ability, that as they develop the subtleties and the nuance and the disciplines to play from the pocket, that when needed, they can use their second reaction ability. Mm-hmm. The question becomes, what's the balance? Can you develop those subtleties of pocket play if you're moving too much? What's the balance? It's a hard deal. It's not a mathematical equation. There's no definitive answer to that question. Mm-hmm. Some quarterbacks never develop that. And it's tough to play that way through the course of a career, because ultimately the game is taught in structure, and at some point, you need to be able to throw the ball from the pocket with consistency.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always say that the ceiling for players that never learn to go through their progressions, like the ceiling for that player is probably the Pro Bowl, right? You see a bunch of guys like that, they may be able to get to the Pro Bowl doing it, and it's exciting for the fans. Right. But it doesn't equate to winning, to winning the ultimate goal, which is the Super Bowl. So at some point, like Greg said, you have to be able to throw the ball from the pocket. Now, being on script 50%, being off script, that's a lot for any offense. Yeah. Right. For any offense.
Does 35% sound more reasonable? That's what Nick
Sirianni is aiming. That's still a little bit high, right? You want the guys to be able to get the ball out, right? Whether it's a check down, whether it's the second read, third read, you want him to get the ball out. When the offensive line makes a mistake or the mic is called out wrong or the defense just got you, that's when the play is off script, right? But most of the time, as a whole team effort, play callers up front, we want the offense to be run like a machine, not necessarily off schedule all the time. That means somebody's not doing their job.
All right. Well, it's not just the offense that really fell apart against Dallas last week. The defense certainly did the team no favors as we shift gears. The Eagles' run defense at times this year has obviously been spotty. We saw that in the first half against Atlanta. Not so much, maybe a little bit in the second half against San Francisco, but certainly early and often against the Cowboys. Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard basically took turns barreling through the Eagles' defense, over 150 combined yards between both of them. Per next generation stats, the next gen stats, 70.6% of Elliott's rushing yards were above the expected total, and 63.6% were for Pollard. So they were getting more yards than what you would theoretically expect them to get on that play.
Almost half of it came in the first quarter, which is not a good sign for the Eagles.
Right.
Because that sets everything up. So they've got to make some changes here. I don't know what. Without Brandon Graham, it's going to be tough because people, and I'll be the first to admit, I knew this would be a problem. We forget how good against the run he is. We talk about his pass rush ability. He's so good at getting blowing plays up in pursuit with the run. That's why Ryan Kerrigan's playing more than we expected. It's not good. We'll see what the approach is today with Andy Reid, though.
Yeah, is it a scheme issue, personnel issue, both? I mean, do they have to change something?
It definitely starts with the scheme.
Okay.
Right?
Too deep?
When you're in zone the entire time and you're reluctant to bring those 8 guys into the box and you're playing pass defense the entire time, and then there is a little bit of players, like our linebackers this past game did not play the best game. When you get 2 double teams on your inside guys, the linebackers have to make the plays and they have to be able to feel where the guys are not. They were comboing blocking but never leaving the combo, right, in order to get to those guys. So that's an indictment on the linebacker play. You got to be able to get toward the line of scrimmage. Rodney McLeod, and that's why Rodney McLeod being back and him playing a lot of snaps is probably very high this week because of how bad our linebacker play is. So if you want to continue to stay in this 2 shell, cover 4, cover 2 look, you got to be able to bring guys down faster. And I think that's mainly scheme. Is there personnel problems? Of course. But you got some dogs up front, in Javon and Fletcher, but they need help. You can't double team the whole game.
There were some times where you mentioned the combo blocks where they didn't even have to combo. There were some times where they blocked the defensive tackles right into the linebackers. Almost killing 2 birds with 1 stone at that point.
Yeah, usually in that scenario, linebackers doesn't always have to see the ball in order for them to get to the ball. Right. You go where the open space is. That's where the running back is going to show his face. Right. And we didn't do a great job at all. And I thought the linebackers played a terrible game.
Craig, do they have to do something different today?
Well, they play a lot of what is essentially a 5-2 front as their base. So they bring the Sam linebacker. Johnson played a lot more snaps, the rookie, this week than Avery did. But it's been Avery up to this point. But the bottom line is that they play a 5-2 front. So you've got 2 stacked players as opposed to 3. So if you play a 4-3, you've got 3 stacked linebackers. So the question is, if you're going to play split safety, yes, do safeties have to come down? Because in quarters, safeties have a run responsibility as well as a pass responsibility.
Right.
But they're deeper. Okay, so they're reacting to the run. They're not in an initial gap per se. So the question is, do they stay with the 5-2 front? Do they go more 4-3 stack? I don't know if we'll get a good feel for that today because of the way the Chiefs play.
Exactly.
Yeah. But the Cowboys basically came in and said, we're going to run the ball. And they double teamed. Whether you want to call it zone concepts or duo, they double teamed. And the Eagles got moved on double teams. And I agree with Jason to some extent that the linebackers have to play better, but it's also hard to play linebacker when your defensive lineman gets shoved into your lap. Yeah. And that happened on too many snaps.
Yeah, and that includes Hargrave and Cox. I mean, we're giving them a lot of credit for
phenomenal splash plays.
Yeah.
And he's played well this year overall. But I thought Fletcher had a number of snaps in this game where he got double teamed and moved.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
it happens. And they have Zach Martin too. Yeah. They got some guys that can play. So it's not like they had like some bad linemen.
And Cox,
so does this Chiefs offensive line though.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got some guys.
5 new starters, but Cox did say after the game he had been ill.
Right.
And Sirianni did say big props to him just to play because he clearly did not have his strength. So I'll be interested to see what the Chiefs' approach is when they do run the football with double teams or whatever. Do they try to get at Cox to see if he's back? Because they have the video too. They know what he said.
Well, it's funny you say that because the Chiefs are obviously a passing team.
Yeah.
But I believe that when you look at their O-line, I think their O-line is actually built more as a run-blocking O-line with the players that are there.
Yeah.
Brown, the rookie Smith from Tennessee, Tooney's a really good run blocker. But they're obviously a passing team, but they can run. Last week they ran it the most they had all year.
Yes,
and
ran it well too.
Yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked pretty good.
I have some data and stats we're going to talk about in a minute on the Kansas City rushing offense that speaks to what you're saying. You guys both mentioned that the Eagles play mostly zone, a lot of split safety.
90%
over 90% zone right now. A lot of the times that splits.
Lowest percentage of man coverage in the NFL through 3 weeks.
Right, amazing, because last year it was completely different with all the man that they were playing. So certainly a switch in scheme. We asked our analytics intern, Zane Gonzalez, to pull some data about, it's Greg's favorite segment, to pull some data on the rushing success against the Eagles this year. And here's what he was able to dig up for us. So far, Eagles opponents have a 68% successful rushing percentage when they run to the A and B gaps against the Eagles. What's successful? Well, it depends on what your down and distance is and how much you're able to pick up toward first down. For example, 1st and 10, you get 4 yards. That's considered a success. You've set yourself up 2nd and 6. So the criteria varies, but I'm just trying to help people out. You know what a successful run is when you see it, because the running back gains a decent amount of yards.
Well, this pass game, obviously, they should have went way up in the A and B gaps because that's where they got gashed.
Well, that's where I'm saying. It seems like the Eagles have been porous up the middle. Again, 68% successful run rate to the A and B gaps against the Eagles. 50 and 60% when rushing to the left or right side of the OL, of the offensive line, respectively, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then there's a look at the personnel groupings that are doing really well against the Eagles. Okay, this is the opponent's success by formation. Right now, the highest yards per carry average and the most rushing attempts come when teams go in 22 personnel against the Eagles, which is 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, but that usually means a fullback.
That's not going to happen today.
Now, that's what I was going to ask you, because the Chiefs don't use a fullback very often.
No,
they have one. But
if they have one, do they maybe adjust? No, they don't.
No.
You want to take your receivers off the field?
They're not going to do
No,
that.
they're not going to do
Sherman
that.
is long gone.
Now, the second most successful run formation against the Eagles is out of 11 personnel, which the Chiefs
you're talking personnel
run a lot.
package. That's not a formation.
Right.
I'm
That's
sorry,
a personnel package.
Yes, 11 personnel, which
Which
is
the Chiefs will be in.
right. That's the Eagles are allowing 4.3 yards per carry on 14 runs out of 11 personnel.
Because you're taking one guy out of the box. You're playing nickel.
See, keep one thing in mind, and Jason can speak to this better than I. I would bet the Eagles are going to stay in their 2-shell because the Chiefs use a lot of motion and shifting, and when you're in a 2-shell, you don't really need to respond to that.
Right.
You know, right? I mean,
it's less thinking.
Yeah, it's less thinking.
It's
you don't
less
really
thinking.
need to respond to that.
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to stay in their 2-shell. Now, one of the biggest surprises of the NFL season last week, week 3 in the NFL season, was how much man coverage the Chargers played against the Chiefs. Everybody thought Brandon Staley, cover 4 guy, and Staley and Gannon are best friends. Staley played almost 80% man coverage versus Mahomes dropbacks last week.
Right.
And that was a big surprise, and it was as I said, one of the biggest surprises of week 3 in the NFL.
They moved the ball okay, right? There were a couple of turnovers.
But you know what? We'll get into that a little more. Let's if you want to keep talking about the Eagles.
They were down 24 points. They were 10 points below their average.
Right.
That's great for State.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah.
The Eagles will sign up for that right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Of course, Greg, as you mentioned, when the Chiefs run the ball well, when they run the ball, they're usually doing it out of 12 personnel. That's where they have, or 11 personnel. They have 35 rushes out of 11, 26 out of 12. 4.7 yards per carry out of 12 and 4.6
Yeah, they will play with 2 tight ends on occasion.
Yeah, occasionally they'll do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
I wonder if they do a little more 12 to keep that base defense that you're referring to on the field for the Eagles.
Well, that's been one of the questions this week that a lot of people are asking is, given how the Eagles play, and assuming that's predictive of how they'll play today, which I believe it will be, I don't think you're going to all of a sudden see high percentage man coverage. They can't match up.
Right.
They can't match up.
They can't match up.
Yeah.
So they're going to play, in my view.
We don't know. We don't. Well, yes.
Well, I mean,
we know they
could
can't
they
match
play a
up.
few more snaps a man?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right,
but they're not going to be predominant male
Yeah,
coverage.
right. Well,
I don't think
Agreed.
I
Agreed.
But here's the thing: we know that Steven Nelson's a physical, tough guy. He's not fast. The big reason why he didn't have a lot of interest in free agency is because he's not a guy who runs all that well. He's just a smart, tough guy. So other than Slay, who do they have who could really cover man and hang with somebody?
They really don't.
Yeah.
And there's I don't know how, I don't know exactly what your format says and how deeply you want to get into the Chiefs' offense right now. But
Go for it.
But you have to have answers for certain things the Chiefs do. You have to have answers for what I call a 1-by-3 set, where they line up Kelsey as the single receiver to the boundary, the boundary X, and they have 3 receivers on the other side, and Hill as the number 3 to trips, meaning he's the closest to the formation.
Yeah.
They are killer out of that particular personnel package and formation look, and you've got to have an answer for that.
And to piggyback what Greg is saying, cover 2 shell is not the best look for that, because you have Tyreek Hill at some point running free on a safety.
Right. He's
Whether
not
he's
easy to
going
tackle.
straight or he's running right at him and going to the pylon.
You think you're
Those
keeping him
2
in front of
routes,
you, but then he catches the ball,
you
turns
just
up the
can't.
jets. And
Cover 2, cover 4 is just not great if the guys in front don't get home. And with Patrick Mahomes being able to extend the play against this team is just not a great. It's not a great answer. It's not a great solution for me.
Do you guys think the Chiefs sort of try to do what Dallas did, which is first drive, which is they kind of went heavy, they ran the ball a lot, and then as soon as they saw the Eagles adjust and bring some guys into the box, CeeDee Lamb, bang, play action pass.
I would answer that this way. I think you'll see them attempt to run the ball, but I think they're going to go into this game because of the predictive nature of the Eagles' coverage, knowing that they're going to whip out their cover 4 beaters, and every team has those. The Chiefs have actually done a great job with those kinds of plays this year, and they're going to use that. They'll run the ball, but it's not going to be a heavy run deal.
No, we don't like just from a defensive coordinator's perspective. If you had a defense coordinator in the room, you have a conversation with them, they'll say that Coach Reid won't have the patience to continue to run the football. Right. So at some point, if you can stop the run, he's not going to have the patience to continue to go at it. You know what I mean? He's going to go over to the pass at some point. And so if you can stop the deep plays, you got a shot. But I don't think our team can stop the deep plays.
So do you anticipate, any of you, Jonathan Gannon doing something different, drastically different? Something to stop
different,
bleeding,
but not drastically, because again, they're a zone team, right? Highest zone percentage, just over 90%.
Which we assume they did most in training camp.
They did
right.
that.
I mean, that's what I mean. You're all of a sudden not going to play 80% man coverage.
They're doing that part of it like we thought. But Greg, let me throw this back at you here. Week 1, it looked like they were doing some disguise. Didn't look like they've been doing it as much lately. How would you, if you were putting you've seen more Patrick Mahomes tape than anybody I know, other than the Chiefs coaches. How would you play against Mahomes? What would you? This guy's been around a long time, and he does so many things you can't defend. How would you go against trying to slow him down?
Well,
you can't stop him, but how do you slow him down?
Within the context of Reid's offense is a fascinating mix, because Andy has some, and Jason knows this. He was there. He's been with Andy, and when you there as a coach too?
No, not as a coach with Andy, but yeah.
Okay, but I mean, Andy has some really good pass game concepts. He's really good attacking zone coverage. From formation standpoint, from route concept standpoint, and then you add in the fact that Mahomes can move. And the thing about zone is every zone has voids, and zones are not meant. The way it was taught to me by one of the great defensive minds, whoever coached Rod Rust, was that zones are meant for 3-step timing and 5-step timing. Once you get to 7-step timing, it's on the pass rush, because then the voids in the zones show up, because every zone has voids.
Everyone.
Right. So it's.
I think Dalton Schultz found a few last week.
Right.
He
had a lot of room.
Great example of that too, because. But anyway, we'll get to that too. But the point is, because of Mahomes' ability to move around, it's very hard to basically stay. You can't stay in zone. Zones. You at some point in zone, and particularly quarters, cover 4. Quarters is really a matchup principle. It starts as a zone concept, but it really becomes a matchup principle as the routes develop.
Yeah, probably at the 10, 12-yard mark. It's going to be man.
It's going to be man, yeah.
Yeah. So, Jay, well, I mean, put your Jonathan Gannon cap on today. You know, you're facing Mahomes.
Me and Jonathan and Gannon, we don't think alike. We just don't think alike.
So how's listening to Q&A? I know.
He's just more conservative than I would like. You know, teams like this where you don't, like we saw the Chargers last week, like I said, against the Chiefs, they held them to 24 points. That's 10 points below the average, and that's predominantly man coverage. You have to be able, with a team like this, to throw off timing. That's the only way you can beat a team like this. Do we have enough horses in the stable to be able to keep up with their horses? I don't necessarily know about that, but there's only one solution. With giving this team trouble, and that's playing them man-to-man.
Right.
The teams that have beaten them have gotten their face, especially in critical moments, third downs. We've seen our guy in critical moments, fourth down, goal line, we need a stop, go zone. We see him go zone the last drive against the 49ers when we need stops. Those are not good things in order to beat this type of a team. You got to be able to get in their face, and we don't have those guys.
If I were to play man, and this is what the Bucs did in the Super Bowl, I would play two-man, not cover one.
Right.
Because two-man, your man-to-man defenders can get beat a little bit over the top because you've got two deep defenders.
Right.
And you can undercut and tailgate routes.
Right.
I would not play, I don't think they can match up playing a meaningful amount of cover one where there's just a single post safety.
I'd agree.
And with the Bucs, here's the thing that the Bucs had that we don't have. Most of the time against running quarterbacks, two-man is not the best defense because everyone turns their back, the quarterback can run.
No Devin White here.
We have Devin White.
Yeah, he's great.
You got freaking David.
By the way, when they played two-man was the matchup on Kelsey.
Exactly, right? When you consider these things and having fast ends, like that's part of. So we don't have those things, so it's kind of hard.
I think this is what, and I know people are frustrated with
I'm
Gannon.
just talking tactically.
No, tactically. No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
I think people are frustrated with Gannon, like the lack of aggression and kind of showing the same thing. And there was a question about whether he was going to be more Mike Zimmer-esque, because that was one of his mentors, or more Matt Eberflus from Indianapolis. And right now it seems more Matt Eberflus. But you have to let this guy also get the personnel to run the schemes that he wants to run.
And I was just going to say that. Yes. Let's understand one thing.
Yes.
He's been there every day since whenever he got hired, okay?
Right.
He's gone through training camp. He's evaluated the personnel.
Right.
What if he believes, and he knows more than we do, we're not there every day. What if he believes this is what my personnel is, and this is the way I have to play with this personnel?
I absolutely believe that is the case right now. He's doing what he can.
And then you try to grow with it. We've played 3 games. This is not a full season.
Yeah.
And we've played 3 games, okay? And obviously they lost their last 2, and you know how Philadelphia fans are. All of a sudden he's an idiot and he doesn't know anything.
Everybody should be fired.
Right, and everybody should be fired, right.
No.
But he may have decided, along with the rest of the defensive staff, that, hey, the personnel we bring to the table right now, this is the way we have to play, or we're going to be worse.
Absolutely. I totally agree. This would be a terrible man-to-man type of defense, I think.
Do you think that guys play different in the game? And that's my whole thought process. I think that you have to give a player a chance in the game, because you evaluating a guy in practice is one thing. If I can see a guy fail consistently in man coverage in the game, I can say, hey, we can't do that. But to this point, we haven't given the guys a shot.
Right.
So I want to see, as a fan, we want to see it too, at least a shot. Maybe they're terrible, and we say, okay, I understand why you got to play this zone.
Well, in all fairness, he played Patrick Johnson last week at that Sam linebacker spot instead of Jannard Avery, which was like out of nowhere. All of a sudden, the rookie's on the field. And then there was another kid who was playing, Milton Williams, and starting over Josh Sweat.
All the Sweat.
So I feel like he's trying, Jay, to at least get his young guys that he wants to mold on the field. But he's also trying to win, because we know if you don't win, it doesn't matter. You can get fired after a year in this league. So he's got a difficult balance to strike here.
Definitely is. I wouldn't want his job right now.
Or his personnel.
Honestly, though, you just mentioned that. I had someone who watched the Eagles tape tell me, he goes, they're not going to win with these linebackers.
Right.
And I won't go into exactly what he said. It wasn't very nice. He just said, look, you can't win with these guys.
Right.
They're not high-level starting linebackers. So Greg's point is fair. You have what you have. But how much better can they be over time? Because if a guy's average, he's not going to become good. If he's just an average talent.
Well, you can be a good player. You don't have to have super talent.
No, but these guys on just evaluating tape over 2 years now, they're pretty much average talent.
Right.
Simpson's a great story, a decent player, right? but you've seen him at times get outclassed by better athletes, and that's the question that you're asking.
Yeah, you can
Do
have
they have that kind of talent.
Right, you can have some players on the defense or on an offense that aren't very good compared to the league average or Pro Bowl, but if they're surrounded by better players, obviously it can be compensated.
I think you got to be. I'm not disputing anything you're saying, okay? But the Rams had the #1 defense in the NFL last year, okay?
Right.
You know what their linebackers were?
But we're not talking about just line. I'm talking about the entire
I know,
back
but
end
I mean,
here.
all I'm saying is I think you have to be careful about making those kinds of statements as a factual absolute.
Well, how do they? Okay.
So Rams linebackers last year were Micah Kaiser and Troy Reader. Okay.
How do they protect
the
them?
#1 defense in the NFL.
Okay, how do they protect them?
I mean, obviously
Did they not have playmakers in the secondary who were like the Jalen Ramseys and then the
for
Keter
Ramsey.
Cyrus
Well,
Browns?
They got the best defensive player that we've seen
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
last
so
10
all
years.
I'm saying is-
That's my point about surrounding with talent.
Right,
In
yeah.
this Eagles
Right,
back
I mean,
end, from linebacker to safety to corner,
And I give
I
both
see
of them.
one player, Darius Slay, who's
Right.
above league average.
Right. That's fair.
That's
you
it.
know.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
And obviously losing Graham, this D
killer.
line, while Aaron Donald's clearly the best at his position in the league, this D line was clearly supposed to be a pretty high level strength.
Defensive line, yeah.
Pretty
Absolutely.
high level.
One of the
Not
top
just
of the-
good,
no,
but one of the best
top
in the
three.
league.
Yeah,
Top
yeah.
three.
And the Rams secondary last year, to me, bar none, was the best secondary in football.
You thought, Charlie?
With Darius Williams playing off zone the way he did, and Troy Hill
No,
playing really
and their
well.
secondary was very, very good.
Last
so they
year-
could,
last
they
year
could
to me.
camouflage and compensate.
That's exactly my
no,
point.
because
You can
John
cover
Johnson
areas.
is a really good safety, too. He's now in Cleveland, but he's
Right.
a really good
Yep.
safety.
Yep.
Right. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars, and that includes the voice of the Eagles, Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, those are our friends, Sky Motor Cars. Make sure you check them out. Tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. Look, we're having a great time here. A lot of good debate, a lot of good discussion about the Eagles. Big game against the Chiefs. We're at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. People are starting to come through the doors. They got all sorts of sports on. They're even playing our show. If you wanted to come and watch our pregame show here on any of their flat screen TVs, have a beer, place a wager, bring your friends, have some food, all of that is available here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. All right, now it's time to do what we do every week on this pregame show, and that's catch up with the other star of the Q&A show, former Eagles safety Quentin Michael. It's a segment that we call Q's Views, and in this Q's Views, we discuss, well, do the Eagles have a chance today against the Kansas City Chiefs? All right, we're here as we are every week with former Eagles safety Quentin Michael, co-host, co-star of the Q&A show on the Inside the Birds platform with Quentin Michael and Jason Avant. Well, Q, a loss on Monday night that you yourself said was horrific, embarrassing, a whole lot of adjectives that weren't pleasant. The Eagles, it's not been a pleasant week for them in the public, obviously coming off 2 straight losses. So I'm going to ask you to put your head coach's hat on for a second and tell me what you do. What's the first thing you do to kind of get this entire team back on track?
I think one of the biggest things that always helps in these type of situations is you just go back to basics. You go back to the fundamentals. You take a week, maybe one practice, and you just work on the basic fundamentals of the game: blocking, tackling, and catching the football, running the football. Those 4 things, you work on them first and foremost, like from the beginning of the week. Like I would say on the first day, on the first practice, that should be the entire focus. And then you go into game planning, and then you take it, step by step, moving forward. But after a game like that, that's the only thing you can do is just go back to square one, start from scratch, emphasize the fundamentals of the game, because that's really what it all comes down to. At the end of the day, it's about blocking and tackling and taking care of the football. So if you go back to basics and focus on those things, you'll have a chance this week.
And how about just offensively? Is that still the same? Just keeping it simple and going back to basics?
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping it simple, going back to basics. Obviously it's been talked about tremendously this week. we got to run the football. You've got to when you have a young quarterback, you've got to give him some opportunities to, let the game come to him, get him in third and second and short situations. And then, when you get the third down, then anything can happen. Then it's a little bit of a different game. And now you have your offensive line in a situation where they're not taking blocks. They're not, dropping back and getting teed off on. You got an offensive line that's now ready to come off the ball, fire off the ball, and get down the field. And that's really what this game is really, at the end of it, is all about. The most successful teams long term, they're able to run the football and able to impose their will when they need to and when they want to.
Q, we saw some early signs of run defense issues in the preseason, saw it in the first half against Atlanta, and obviously with Dallas, 2 running backs going for over 150 yards on the ground. Is this an issue of scheme or personnel, in your opinion?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the scheme is fine. I think I would like to see a little bit more of our safeties rolled down into the box to kind of help out in certain situations. But I think the biggest thing is the middle of our defense is just not up to par right now. Our linebacking core, they're great guys. They run around, they fly around to the ball, but sometimes we're asking guys that are used to playing in space, we're asking them to, come downhill and take on guards and to fill gaps. And that's not necessarily what they've been doing their entire career. So, it's hard to say Hargraves and Fletch, you guys take double teams all game and let our 3 linebackers just flow to the football, because they're not flowing to the football. They're dropping when they should be coming forward. They're, taking false steps when they should be reading guards and coming off the initial read and getting downhill. So I think the biggest issue is the middle of our defense has got to get better. They've got to play more aggressive against the run. And so what if you take a couple false steps and you step forward and it ends up being a boot? I'd rather see linebackers playing downhill, coming downhill, and attacking first. And then you can always, especially with our secondary, they're reading their keys. They're playing where they're aligning and being where they're supposed to be. So long story short, if our linebackers start to play more downhill, even if you take a false step, you can turn around and get underneath those routes and help out.
All right, Andy Reid comes back to Philadelphia for just the second time since he became coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. He won the first time against Chip Kelly about 8 years ago. Now he's got Pat Mahomes. Now he's facing an Eagles defense that's struggling. What do you expect Andy and Patrick Mahomes to do on Sunday to the Eagles, philosophically and schematically?
I think philosophically they're going to come out and they're going to do what they do best. They're going to come out, they're going to throw the football, they're going to attack the middle of the field. They're going to use Travis Kelce against our linebackers and our safeties and get their playmakers the ball. They're going to take shots, of course, and in certain times, and they're definitely going to, use the screen game. They're going to use intermediate passing game, and they're just going to cut Patrick Mahomes loose and just say, hey, listen, go out there and win it. And so it's going to be a tough task. It's going to be a tough order. I think the defense can play much better this week if they, again, read their keys and they figure out a way to limit Travis Kelce and his effect on the game. But it's going to be a tough task.
And what about the idea of Andy? I know it's Andy Reid, but after what happened last week, maybe he uses the running game a little more, or is that just completely not Andy Reid?
Yeah, that's really not. It's never really been Andy's forte, and that's why I kind of say they're going to do what they're going to do. And Andy, he will run the ball if he has to. I don't see them coming out and pounding the rock 20, 40 times a game, but they will take their spots and they will have some stuff schemed up in the run game and be ready. But I think at the end of the day, he likes to pass. He's got Patrick Mahomes. He's got some weapons on the outside. I think he's going to come in and throw the ball, and then that's his thing. And I wanted to say this because I kind of in our show this week I kind of gloss over, but I think this is a tremendous feat. And I have a lot of respect for Andy. And if he wins this game, this is going to be his second team that he's taken to over 100 wins, which is a phenomenal feat. It's never been done in the NFL, and it'd be crazy. It's tough because I'm an Eagles fan through and through. I also have a lot of respect for Andy, and I love and support him. And so, at the end of the day, I don't want to see the Eagles lose. But if they do have to lose, this is a situation where, I'm okay with that.
All right, hold off. We will get to your prediction later in this segment. Another coach that you played for and have familiarity with is the Chiefs defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. I know you talked with Jason Avant on the Q&A show about some things that Jalen Hurts can expect to see from the Kansas City defense today. So give us an outline of what you think will happen.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to come after Hurts. They're going to show him some different looks. I think with a young quarterback like Hurts, the way that this defense will attack is they're going to move the safeties, but they're going to do it post snap. They're going to show them one look, maybe a two shell, and then post snap move down to a single high or move down into a zone pressure. And so I think that's really the way they're going to bring some exotic looks, some different types of blitzing schemes. We might see some cornerback blitzes this week. We might see, some ends dropping out. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing the schemes and how they match up and how Jalen kind of adjusts to it, because it's going to be tough at times. There's going to be situations where it's going to be 3rd and long, and he may be unsure of the look, or he might be pre-snap sure of the look, and they change it. And I want to see how he adjusts to that, because these are the type of games where a young quarterback can either learn and grow, or just end up being unsure and start seeing ghosts and all those type of things. So I'd like to see, if he's unsure, just pull the ball down and run. Just pull it and run. It's okay. Get what you can, and let's get on the sideline, look at the iPad, and let's figure it out and move forward.
Yeah, very much a crossroads kind of game for Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and the Eagles as they sit at 1-2 after 3 games. They've played 3 games. You have predicted them to win 3 times. They're 1-2. That means you are 1-2 in your predictions. So what do you got for this week?
Yeah, this week I'm going against the Eagles a little bit. It's hard. I hate doing it, but I just feel like there's too much at stake. I think that the Chiefs offense is going to they're going to right the ship. First couple games they haven't really had that guy opposite of Tyreek Hill. I don't think Josh Gordon plays this week, but I don't think they need him. I think this week it's going to be the Chiefs on top this week. I'm going to say it'll be probably about 28-14. I'll say the Chiefs win this week.
All right, Q for the first time picks against the Eagles, says the Chiefs win 28-14. Those are Q's views. Thanks a lot, Q.
Thank you.
All right, always great to catch up with former Eagle safety Quentin Michael, and of course you can hear Quentin Michael and Jason Avant doing the Q&A show on the Inside the Birds platform, YouTube, podcast, 6 a.m. every Thursday during the season. So make sure you check out the show. I gotta say, the last show was what do the kids say? It lit. You guys were on fire. I want to get into a couple of questions that people have submitted through YouTube, because there are some really good questions. First, I want to remind everybody that Public Square and Rebel Hill are back. The team of James and Zach are behind the controls, bringing Inside the Birds to you in high definition with great graphics, videos, and more. Contact Public Square Media and Rebel Hill Productions to produce your webcast, podcast, live show, or anything else you can dream of. This team can bring it to life. And we, of course, at Inside the Birds here thank Jack and James for Jack and Jim and Zach. Come on, guys.
Oh my God.
Jim and Zach for all the great work that they've done. So thanks for even me butchering your name and not being offended by it. Appreciate that.
The morning's young. They might well be offended by it.
Jerry, you're right. You could be correct about that. All right, a couple of really good questions from the message board.
By the way, he doesn't have a middle name. Isn't that weird?
I do have a middle name.
I know some people who don't have a middle name.
You said you didn't have a middle name. Oh,
He just doesn't
tell you.
It's not like a crazy name or anything. It's David.
Really?
David.
I didn't know. All these years I've known you. Wow.
Yeah. All right.
And when I say that, I don't mean
Not like
interesting.
a crazy name.
I thought it was going to be like Virgil.
All right. So the first question comes from Carl Stevenson, one of our loyal listeners and viewers, and he asks about Hurts, because you guys were talking about him before, and the progressions. Is it, from what you're seeing, that he's not reading the progressions, or is it more that he just wants to? What are you seeing from Jalen Hurts over the last 2 weeks?
I would answer that this way, and then Jason could probably answer it a little differently and maybe better, but I would answer it this way. I think when quarterbacks grow up in the game as athletes, okay, what they end up doing, because you're always, when you're growing up, you're probably the best athlete on the field or very close to it. So what happens is whenever it doesn't seem right to you, you take off because you know you can be really good playing that way. Right. That's just the way you start playing at a young age. Guys who are not that way, they can't do that. So I'm just using this as an example. I don't want people to think I'm saying this guy because, you know, Jalen Hurts is this guy. But the Tom Brady's of the world, when he started playing quarterback at 9, 10, 11, he couldn't just stop and run. Right. Nothing was going to happen. He was not going to be the best physical gifted athlete on the field. So those guys learn how to manage and manipulate the pocket. That's how they have to play. Right. There's no other way they can play. Right. When guys are great athletes, and you see this watching college football every Saturday because the college game is different, you see so many quarterbacks that drop back and they take off. And they can make plays.
Make plays.
And they
you can win championship that way.
In college, you can absolutely do that.
This level's harder.
It's harder at this level. So it's not a matter that he's incapable. We don't know that yet. We don't know as his career progresses. But at this point, when it's muddy and he doesn't immediately get a clear picture, what does he do best? Right. This is what he does best.
I can speak to this last game, and I'll keep the other games out of, you know, my evaluation. I thought that the Cowboys made him frantic a little bit.
I would agree.
Right? And just simple throws. Even the pick six was still behind the guy.
Right.
Right? So it was probably a 75% chance he was still getting a pick.
Right.
Whether
Devontae 100%.
Devontae Smith, if he didn't fall or not.
Well, no, he said if Devontae Smith was 8 foot tall, it wouldn't have mattered.
No.
They read his eyes. They knew
entire
that
that was a phenomenal play by Trayvon Diggs.
And that was film study and you know, just anticipation. Right. But when I say to get back to my assessment of him is that they made him a little frantic after that first play that he threw the ball up and Jalen didn't protect the ball. Jalen Reagor didn't protect the ball. It seemed like it went downhill from there. And Jalen Hurts has to realize that there's answers in front of him. Right. Right? And that's the thing that the running quarterback, sometimes, the guy that's athletic, don't recognize. Right? They think, okay, if the answer is not 1 or 2, the only other solution is to get outside the pocket. No, there's an answer right in front of you. You just got to figure out what that answer is, whether it's the check down or the third read, right? Let me get through that progression a little bit quicker. And that's what I see. I thought that they made him frantic. He was behind on throws. He lost his confidence. All of that's a part of coaching to me, because you don't put this guy in a situation where he has to throw the ball 50 times. You just don't. Right. You just don't. And you got to give him a run game so he can see the ball. You can take some of the pressure off of him. Give him some stuff that he can handle.
And I would add this, and this takes time, okay? What you try to get to with quarterbacks is where they can get the answers as high a percentage of the time as possible before the ball snapped. Okay, he's not there yet. You wouldn't expect him to be there. That's unrealistic. But that's what you're trying to work toward.
Yeah. Would you go back to the Week 1 game plan against Atlanta? Quick game, out of his hands.
The only issue with that, yes, theoretically, yes.
Here we go. So we're going to agree on this point.
Is that teams now know that, okay? I mean, don't forget Trayvon Diggs. That was a quick game. They start the first possession of the third quarter down 17-7. They get the ball, just like you said. Okay, you can still run your base offense, the offensive game plan, okay? There's plenty of possessions left. You don't need to change anything. And what do? They go with a quick game speed out to Devonta Smith, okay? Who's sitting on it? Trayvon Diggs. He's sitting on it.
And go ahead.
No.
And to Greg's point, this past week, you don't have a faster team sideline to sideline defensively than the Dallas Cowboys. With Jalen Smith and Micah Parsons, and even Van Der Esch can run. Those guys can move sideline to sideline. Jalen Smith played an outstanding game. Every time Hurts got on the edge, it was a 1-yard gain or even 0 because that dude can run it down, you know? So it's just a different thing. So when you start to do that dink and dunk stuff, it's different when you got linebackers and safeties and corners that can run to it. It was just a different game plan this week.
You know what strikes me as interesting about you talking on this is, and I'm going to to separate Mike Vick from
I
the
thought he was
equation.
interesting all the time, not just now.
No, even more so. I talked to him
Checks
a
in the
lot.
mail, Jason. Frank will be giving
I talked to Jay like 5 times a week. It's really not that interesting. The reality is Mike Vick's on a different level, so I'm going to separate him. You played in 2006, Donovan and Jeff Garcia. You played with 2 quarterbacks who towed the line pretty well between when to use the athleticism and when to just be able to trust your instincts on throw or read your progressions and be able to throw the ball. Those 2 guys did a pretty good job of that.
I thought Donovan So Donovan was reverse. Right? So when Donovan used his legs when it was time to.
Correct.
A third down, he was Russell Wilson. He was Russell Wilson before Russell Wilson. When he made up in his mind that I'm not going to use my athletic ability anymore and I'm going to be Tom Brady only, that's when Donovan McNabb struggled, which was a little bit different.
When you tear up your hip and then you tear up your knee, that decision is sometimes made for you.
It's funny you say that because I actually talked with Andy after that draft, his first draft, because I got to know him pretty early on when he got to Philly, and he told me that what he studied at Syracuse with Donovan, because he knew everybody could see that. You don't have to study the athleticism.
Right.
You know, everybody can see that. But he said he really made it a point to study hard all his drop back throws at Syracuse. And he knew he could play in the NFL because of that. Not because he could just run around.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a little bit, and Jeff Garcia wanted to get the ball out on time.
Right.
Now Jeff Garcia is a West Coast guy.
Yep. When
the play got broken down, somebody didn't get their block or something like that, he would make a play.
Right.
That's what you want. You want guys to make a play when the play isn't right.
Right. Isn't
That's
that what
it.
this coaching
needs to be-
staff
that's
wants from
what it
Jalen
needs
Hurts,
to
right?
be
You
that.
want him to be a West Coast guy.
It needs
who
to be
just,
the parachute,
Yeah.
not the first thing.
Exactly.
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 All right.
But
Interesting
Garcia was
stuff.
a timing guy.
Oh, he was timing all the way.
Yeah.
That's why he was in the league, not because he could run around.
That's why he made
Right.
Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
Because he was it was like the ball would come around you and he'd be like, man, you get your head right. I'm going to hit you in the helmet with it, and that's how it would be. You come out of the break, bam.
In the Bill Walsh basic offense, which is that's the derivative that the Andy Reids run, the Grudens run. It starts with the Bill Walsh offense, which is all timing.
Absolutely. All right, you guys ready to move on to some trench talk? We're going to get some more questions later in the show, but we got to talk about some things going on in the trenches. I want to begin with kind of just an overall how they performed against Dallas, because there were times where the line looked spotty, but I don't know if I would agree with the assessment that the Eagles' offensive line. I don't know that I would agree with the assessment that they made it an untenable situation for the quarterback either.
Oh, exactly. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, some people felt like that everything was because the offensive line did not hold up, and I'm not sure that's right.
He bailed, but I didn't count them, and also the people I spoke to didn't count it. But the way I understand it, Hurts just broke the pocket way too many times. And when you do that and you see guys chase him, if you're watching off TV, it looks like the line broke down. No, he did. He decided to move, and you can't do that. So that to me has got to be better today. And the hope is that you get Dickerson back now for his second start. He's feeling a bit better about himself.
Right.
Okay, there are going to be some other changes here with most likely Nate Herbig. We'll see what happens. And here's another thing. I would think they're going to run the ball a little bit more than they do. In fact, they have to. That'd be basically impossible not to. How's Andre Dillard going to work as a run blocker? Because pass blocking, very good last week. They didn't ask them to run block.
Here's the issue, and this is a philosophical issue, and I don't know what their answer is going to be. I think if they're being realistic, and coaches do tend to be realistic, they don't state it to the media, but they do tend to be realistic. My guess is they're going to think they're going to have to score points in this game. This is not likely to be a 17-13 game. Correct?
Just not happening.
Right.
Maybe after the first quarter.
Right. So the question becomes, we can sit here and we all agree philosophically that this team needs to run the ball. I don't think no one's debating that.
Right.
Is this the week, though, that the staff is going to think that that's the approach? Because think of it this way. Let's say they come out and they run it great. Let's say that happens. In a normal game, Mahomes would get 11 or 12 possessions. So what does running the ball do? So it gives him 10, maybe 9 if you're lucky.
Sure.
If he's scoring 4 touchdowns on those 9 possessions, you still got to score 28 points.
Exactly. That's what happens when you run the ball.
So this philosophy of let's keep him on the sideline, I think Mahomes, maturity-wise, is past that point where he's going to panic and think, oh, my God, I got to score on every play.
Yeah.
He's past that point.
Right.
So you have to score points.
Yes.
So while we all agree philosophically, hey, this team's got to run the ball, I'm curious how Nick and the staff thinks, hey, we might have to throw it in this game.
Particularly if they get down early.
Sure. And again, that's the difficult balance to strike here.
Balance.
Because not only do you have to score, but the Eagles are kind of back in 2020 mode here with 3 backups on the offensive line.
Right.
Andre Dillard at left tackle, Landon Dickerson at one of the 2 guard spots, and then another replacement guard. Dickerson, you would think, because of how he played at Alabama, you would want to get this guy running, moving forward, road grader. He's been a pass protector mostly because that's the way the game has unfolded when he's been in it, and he's looked rusty, and I don't know about the health, if he's 100% or if he's just coming back and getting his feet under him. But when you've seen Landon Dickerson, what have you think you've seen
I think
there?
you nailed it. To me, he's done well in the run game, and he's struggled at times in pass protection.
Yeah.
It's that to me is, if I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version, the snapshot, that's what I would say.
Right. I know it's just practice, but we get to watch the warm-ups at the NovaCare, and I always watch the offensive line and how they practice their combo blocks and everything. And even in practice, he finishes strong.
Oh,
with that.
that's his thing.
I mean, he's brutal in that, in a good way.
He's a big freaking dude now.
But they're not. He doesn't get that chance to show it.
The thing is that running the ball for guys like Landon Dickerson helps him out in the pass game. And it's funny how the game works like that. Once you get your confidence up, and even at receiver in different positions, the tight end gets a great block and he finishes, or a guy in baseball that makes a diving catch. Next thing you know, he's got a single or a double or whatever it is, right? Because that confidence grows. And as an offensive lineman, I think that if you run the ball behind him and get his confidence up, he'll do better in the pass game. That's just what I think.
What can we say about Andre Dillard? He played well against Dallas.
Pass protected, I thought, very well.
Right.
They didn't run it enough where I felt like I got a good read on the run game.
That's exactly. We said last week, Greg, in our pregame show that this would almost be certainly not an easy test, but a test that caters to what he does, which is pass protection against speed rushers and inexperienced rusher like.
But I thought there were a
Parsons.
few snaps. He still has, to me, some struggles with speed to power and bull rush.
Right.
And while I know Adam said that Chris Jones lines up predominantly on the left side, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him line up on the right side at times in this game, because Chris Jones is obviously not a twitchy, flexible bend guy as an edge rusher. He's a speed to power bull rush guy. It would not surprise me to see that matchup on occasion.
If I'm the Chiefs, that's what I'm doing.
Right.
That's a no-brainer for me.
You got to challenge on
You have to challenge him.
Right.
You got to challenge him. It's in the notes. Okay, he doesn't handle power pretty well.
Right.
And I get the strongest probably guy on my team on him. I think that's a win-win for the Chiefs.
His weight, as I understand it, he's up somewhere between 25 and 30 pounds. It doesn't make him significantly stronger, but he needed to bulk up. And that was the issue with Jack Driscoll when the Eagles drafted him. For him to play guard, he had to get significantly stronger. We'll see over time, but today I agree would be a good test.
And some of that's technique too, because you can't let guys get inside. Look what. We're not comparing Chris Jones to Reggie White, but look what Reggie White used to do with that hump move. That was a timing thing. He could time it so well that an offensive lineman would just lift up, one leg, and then you're done. You could weigh 350 pounds and you're still going to get moved.
Yeah.
That's a timing thing. Right. So if you let guys inside of you, you could gain 20 pounds all you want. You're still going to get pushed back.
Sure. Now, is it better with an Andre Dillard, who, again, if you're not that type of road grader type lineman, but you have to run, is he a good movable, like a left tackle doing traps and things like that?
Well, he's got good feet. He's got good feet. That was his thing coming out.
Right.
What he's been in the NFL when he's got a chance to play is exactly what the evaluation was based on his college tape study, in that he's a really good athlete and there are strength concerns.
Mm-hmm. I believe in the game against the Jets, they did use him as a guy that, they trapped him a lot. They tried to get him on the move more than keeping, which I don't know if we've seen that a lot from Jordan Mailata. He's almost been more of a stationary left tackle.
I would say
they would do that with Peters. They would get him up and moving because he was a freakish athlete.
Yeah.
So a lot to be
Well, Mailata got out on the edge a few times against the Falcons. Right?
He got
out on the edge. So it all depends on what the play call is. The job is a job.
Right.
When offensive coordinator calls it and you have to move, you have to move it, no matter who's over there.
Here's one thing that he struggled with a couple years ago. I think when he played right tackle.
Dillard?
Dillard,
He played right tackle. The way it's explained to me was this. When he has a couple bad snaps, sometimes they become more bad snaps and more bad snaps. He was really good last week.
Right.
Let's see how he handles today if Chris Jones is over him. And he won't have to worry about Frank Clark. Let's see how he handles himself if there are a couple bad snaps. So you just recover. We've talked about, Trey Thomas would tell us about the technique that Stoutland teaches. The hands are lower than they normally would be with other offensive line coaches. Let's see how he handles himself when it doesn't always go so well.
And by the way, he catches a break, doesn't he, with no Frank Clark? I mean, Frank Clark is a beast. He's a typical Michigan player, dirty, cheap, nasty. Right?
He's definitely not a Michigan type player, but we had him.
And some guys,
somehow he wound up in Michigan.
Sometimes every Ohio State guy ends up in Michigan every now and again.
And some guys just can't make the switch from one side to the other. I mean, Penny Sewell, who was considered a great left tackle prospect, he played right tackle in training camp. He was in preseason. He was awful. Then because Decker got hurt in Detroit, he moved to left tackle. He's been very good because he's a left tackle. Everything's different.
Right. By the way, I can't wait for that Eagles-Detroit game for us to do the pregame. I know we're several weeks away, but I've enjoyed watching Detroit kind of just get out on the field and try to cause life miserable for everybody.
They've been losing. They lose, but they're
like that team that nobody wants to have to play because
they're playing hard.
They're
playing hard. Yeah, they're playing hard.
Yeah, they're devouring kneecaps. That's what the
slogan is once. Yep.
All right, check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto.
Breaking news, this is monstrous. Lane Johnson is inactive.
What?
Wow.
He's inactive.
Lane Johnson is inactive?
Yes. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Oh, here we go. Minshew, of course, Mac McCain, Lane Johnson, Mailata, and Tui Pelotu. But, all right, guys, so are we going to have...
Boy, I said 2020 because
Jack Driscoll should be the right.
So then Herbig is going to be inside at guard.
Yeah.
So your offensive line is Andre Dillard, left tackle. Nate Herbig,
so Jones
left guard.
could stay on the left side then.
Yes.
He'll go against Driscoll.
Nate Herbig is your left guard.
He's at a buffet today.
Yeah, I know.
Landon Dickerson, right guard, and Jack Driscoll, right tackle, you would think. This is 2020 calling and saying it wants the Eagles back.
Wow. Injury?
What's that?
Ankle,
which is the same one. I don't know. They haven't announced it, but
wow.
Man, that is
stunning.
This whole show just took a turn for the worse.
Oh boy! All right. Well, look, they're now down. Is that
4? That would be 4.
Is Kelsey the last man standing?
He's the oldest guy. Is the last man
standing.
How does
this happen?
It happens every year.
That's a shame.
Second year in a row.
These young guys, not what they want.
Second year in a row because they played the most O-line combinations of any team in the league last year.
I wonder what the NFL record is. They might be setting one. That's just not good. Hopefully it's only just this week.
Look, I mean, until we get more information on which ankle and the extent of the injury, it's hard to speculate. But obviously, if it is the same ankle.
Well, it's bad enough that he's inactive.
Yeah, he's inactive, and this is because, remember, the ankle had a surgery which didn't really take, right, Adam? That's why he had to have the second surgery, the tightrope?
He had the same surgery that Tua had. And he came back too early and had to have the follow-up. Now, what we were told was he was lights out great in OTAs. It was great for him. The surgery went well. I don't know.
Did he practice all week?
He worked. Yeah, he was able to work.
I think he was one of the few that might have not practiced Wednesday because a lot of the veterans don't do Wednesday anymore.
But he did not have a injury status, which means he was probable for the game.
Right.
He didn't have a designation.
He didn't have a designation.
Wow,
those are things that makes you wonder sometimes. Is do they think they believe they can win the game? To me. Like, because there's times, and a lot of people don't want to hear these types of things, but there's decisions like those that are being made from higher up sometimes, right? So you playing a team that you are outclassed by, and I can use this for a guy like Lane to get a bye week because I feel like we're going to lose it anyway.
Right.
Do we do that?
I see what you're saying. You're saying you're more. I get it. You're saying you're more cautious with a guy who may be nursing something that's not a big deal because
your chance. So if the Eagles win this game, this city is partying.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's usually a good indication that we don't supposed to win the game.
Right. If they lose, they were supposed to lose. The thing is, you are still trying to learn a lot about your quarterback, no matter who you're playing. And now you got to learn about your quarterback with 4 backup offensive linemen. That's not easy.
Well, these past couple weeks for Jalen Hurts is definitely not looking like it's not looking the best, but hadn't looked the best for him, right? As
No, he's learning what life is like being an Eagle. I'll tell you that.
Well, look, Lane Johnson took all of his reps on Thursday and Friday.
Right.
So maybe in warm-ups it didn't feel right. This is a surprise.
That's a big surprise.
That's not good.
Yeah, I was going to scold you for interrupting my read.
Sorry, brother. That was too big.
That's actually really important. But I'm going to finish it off. For the fan, by the fan is PHL Sports Nation's motto. Check him out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation. Man, man,
I
every
wasn't
once in a while we
expecting
get
it.
hit with
Yeah.
a curveball, and
That
this
was-
is a big curveball.
Yeah, there was no reporting on this that I know of before the game. In fact, again, when you take all of your reps on Thursday and Friday, I know it's a late practice. Yeah, Jason, typically, how short is a Friday practice for a Sunday game?
Friday practice is an hour. I'll say special teams practice is about 30 to 40 minutes, and then offense and defense practice is 1 hour. So Lane is really not out there on special teams. Let's just come out the end for field goal. So an hour and 5 minutes. You know, that's about it.
Now let's get into some real conspiracy. Do you think that when they decided to activate Jack Driscoll to the 53, that
did
they
they know
also
that?
activated Josiah Scott as well to make it not look like they were only activating Jack Driscoll with a purpose?
This is way beyond me.
I'm just saying.
This
I'm
is
just
things
saying.
that we
But these are some things front offices. We know they play with
They
injury
do.
reports. We
Yeah,
know
bunch.
that they try to be as secretive as possible. When those two guys were activated, it didn't
Scott's
make me
active,
think,
though.
it just
But
made me
Scott-
think that they were
but
just
Scott-
ready to go.
They only have 5 inactives today. Scott is active.
That's my
Josiah
point.
Scott, right.
If he doesn't play today, you'll know though.
No, but the fact that Herbig, Driscoll, the first week he could come back after 3 days of, actually 2 days of practice.
So who are their backup O-linemen today?
Brett Toth would be one of them.
Brett Toth, Sua Opeta,
Yep.
Sua Opeta.
and the kid that they signed from Buffalo,
Jack Anderson.
Yeah.
Is he
The
active
Texas
today?
Tech kid.
Good point. Jack Anderson is active. Every lineman that they have, the only linemen inactive are both hurt, Mailata and Johnson. So right now, it's Sua Opeta, who's a guard only, Jack Anderson, who's a guard, Jack Driscoll is a right tackle guard. Brett Toth could be right, left tackle, and guard. So they'll have enough bodies, but they don't have a lot of experience if they have to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's incumbent upon the defense to really hold this game as close as they
That's maybe
can
a
and try to make it
bloodbath,
manageable.
I don't know what the line is. I don't know.
Yeah, is the line moving up on the Rivers Casino?
The line went up 20.
Just shot up from 7 to 21.
I don't know much about point spreads, but this absolutely impacts the game. Lane Johnson being out
can't
absolutely
not.
impacts it.
Absolutely.
Oh boy, good
All
luck,
right,
Eagles.
let's flip sides and talk about the defensive line, because really at this point, we already know what the offensive line situation is. It's fairly perilous. We usually talk about Fletcher Cox, early in the year about him having to be the guy and show up, but clearly through 4 weeks, Javon Hargrave has been the Eagles' best defensive lineman and probably best overall player on the field for them. It's been quite a 4 weeks for him, and if you look per Next Gen stats, among interior NFL linemen, Javon Hargrave is number 1 in the major rankings as far as pressures, sacks, pressure rate, sack rate. Number 1 in all, 15 pressures, 4 sacks, getting pressure on 25% of his snaps, and 6% of his snaps he's getting sacked. So I know when the Eagles signed him 2 years ago, they really liked him. We knew that they were targeting him in free agency. In fact, us on Inside the Birds were one of the few to even say that they were interested in him. I didn't know, I don't even know if they knew they were getting a player who was going to dominate like this. I mean, he has been fantastic. Are you seeing just a lightning quick guy who's just coming into his own? Greg, I know you studied him at Pittsburgh, and you said you liked him.
Studied him coming out of
Did
college,
you see
too.
this kind of, South Carolina
South Carolina State.
Is that the same Darius Leonard?
Yes.
They play together?
Yeah.
Wow.
Must have been one hell of a defense.
Where
huh?
he was a pass rusher in college.
Right.
So the pass rush element is not something new for him.
Right.
Because everybody has this view of Pittsburgh being a 3-4 defense, they immediately say, oh, he's a 2-gap player, which was not the case, by the way. There's very few teams, because now it's more of a 5-2 front. Very rarely do you see teams play the old school 3-4 with 2-gap.
Right.
Yeah. Everything is more 1 gap. So people who don't follow that stuff think, oh, he just lined up and he hand-fought the guy in front of him. That was not the case. So he's a gap player, and he's always been really good as a 1-gap player.
Is he lining up over center a lot in this Eagles defense,
this
more
past
so than
game.
Jim Schwartz has had?
Well, he
or
lines
is that
up
just
as a nose shade or as
nose
one
shade, right,
technique.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a matchup. He had a matchup problem with the Cowboy center that couldn't contain him at
Yeah,
all, and
exactly.
he exploited it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something? I mean, the center for the Chiefs is a rookie, Creed Humphrey, I believe, from
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Left-handed, by the way. Not too many left-handed
no.
centers. Snap the ball left-handed.
That's
They
weird.
played 2 rookies on their O-line.
And Trey Smith being the other one,
Yeah,
the right
yeah,
guard, right? Is this an advantage, do you think, that goes to the Eagles, or are these 2 linemen pretty good for rookies?
I think they're solid players. I think the way Hargrave is playing right now, he's a load to handle.
Right.
Humphreys will not have seen a guy like that. But no, we know Hargrave's playing great football, but he had some really good snaps last week, and their D-line still got handled for the most part.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not I should say it's not consistent, but he does have those flash
Right,
plays
yeah.
where he's making a lot of production, but it's not always, changing the outcome of the game. But he's playing at a blistering pace, and this has to slow down. When you get a defensive tackle that has 4 sacks in the first 3 games, at some point it's going to slow down. Hopefully it doesn't today, and he can be the player that puts his imprint on this game. I don't necessarily
He's sort
know
of
if
playing like Aaron Donald right now, and you wonder if that's
blistering. Yeah,
that's a sustainable. But if not, that's why you have Fletcher Cox. Adam, I asked you earlier this week if you were getting any feedback as far as is Fletcher Cox not playing to a normal Fletcher Cox level?
I would say this. I think it's part on his health. He wasn't feeling good. But a better look at would be this. What's the future for Fletcher Cox, right? You and I had talked before the season started. Is he the same player? You guys obviously could attest to this. You're watching him. He's not the same player. Is he? When he was elite, he was on a 10-point scale. He was 9.5. It's somewhere around 6.5, 7. So let's move this forward here. Let's say around the trade deadline in November, early November, that the Eagles are 3-10. Or they're clearly not going to the playoffs. Do you move them?
Well, I think the answer to that is, the context of that is that Javon Hargrave signed just a 3-year deal in free agency. So at the end of this year, he's only going to have 1 year left.
You got to decide what you want to do with him.
And this team does not want you to be 1 year away from free agency because your price tag keeps going up and up and up. So the question is, do you want to keep him and sign him to redo his contract? But if you do that, then you may not be able to keep Fletcher Cox next year because that's a whole lot of money.
Personally, I don't think that would be an issue for the Eagles. I think they'd rather sign Hargrave, and Cox will be somewhere else.
I would tend to agree with that.
Cox
but
is
we have to see how
32,
this
33.
Yeah, he's up there now.
Yeah,
he's up there now.
He turns 31 in December.
And it does feel like he's been around forever, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, 2012 first-round pick. The guy that Jim Washburn really wanted. That's how long ago this was.
Yes. In fact, I remember, this is a great story. I remember the pre-draft process. All the reporters were interviewing an Eagle at the time who had just signed an extension, and they used to bring you into the rotunda and interview the guy. And while we're interviewing somebody who just had signed an extension, Jim Washburn and Dontari Poe come walking through the Novacare because Dontari was on a pre-draft visit. So all the reporters suddenly look at that because you know how pre-draft season is with all the information. And Jim Washburn goes, "Hey everybody, I want you to go meet Fletcher Cox." You should have seen the look on Dontari Poe's face, but he was just trying to kind of play the diversion.
Right.
Stupid enough to confuse Fletcher Cox with Dontari Poe.
Yeah.
Spoiler: some of us probably were, but not me.
Dontari Poe went to Memphis.
Yes, he's a Memphis guy.
But yeah, that was definitely.
He tested crazy at the combine.
Oh yes,
I remember that.
Remember that? Yeah.
He ran a 40. That was ridiculous.
Yeah,
For a guy under 5s, I recall.
Yeah, it was under 5. It was the high 4.8s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
All the media
that was there.
They were televising it, and they were crazy over his 40. But clearly Cox was somebody drafted with that one gap, Jim Schwartz, Jim Washburn kind of style in mind, and now you're playing a different defense.
Player. Yeah, he's been a great player. There's no question about it. Because you never want to wait till it's too late to trade a player, because you figure Cox maybe got 2 or 3 good years left in him. If they're not in it, you got to make a tough choice. And by the way, the contract is extremely tradable. Let me see if I. Oh, yeah.
Fletcher Cox.
Yeah. So now dead money would be significant, but from a team receiving it, because of his latest restructure, he's got 2 years left on his deal. $1 million base salary next year. Okay. Actually, only has 1 year left because 23 will void. They put voidables in his latest restructure. You're just going to take on a lot of dead money, and that's something the Eagles are going to have to experience if they do that. But it's not like they haven't done it. They just did it with Carson Wentz, taking well over $30 million.
Wow. Well, so we'll have to see how Javon Hargrave finishes this year and what kind of decision the Eagles make there going forward. And I think Fletcher Cox's agent has just unleashed some gnats on me for even suggesting. Let's also talk about the Eagles' defense and what they're not doing, and that's producing turnovers. And I feel like we've had this conversation for a couple of years running now. It's just Fletcher Cox, go figure, has the only Eagles takeaway.
That was an amazing
last
play.
week. And by the way, they're all mad that he got credited with a fumble recovery and not an interception for that. I mean, I say mad, I'm kidding, but they thought he should have gotten an interception.
Did Hargrave blow that play up?
That was
Yes,
Hargrave's
that was
play.
Hargrave.
That was
That was
Hargrave's play.
He drove
Yeah.
the center right back into the
Yeah,
pocket.
yeah.
Jay, I know on the Q&A show you had some really strong opinions on just the Eagles' defense and why turnovers don't come. The philosophy.
Yeah, you just can't. Turnovers are forced, right? They're turnovers. They're takeaways.
Right.
That's another stat for them, where you take the ball away. That's something that you have to do physically. You go in and you take it out of their hands. We don't have a defense that's built like that because we're so conservative. Usually you want to make a quarterback uncomfortable, make an offensive line uncomfortable, make them think, right? So with no pressure, the one time that we dial up a zone blitz, a two-fire zone blitz, we
sacked
confused them and
yeah.
we got them.
We got 'em, yeah.
We got them, and then we don't go back to it, right? So those are the type of plays that cause the quarterback to throw the ball in the air. There's a sack fumble. There's something like that occur. But when you're just sitting back and letting the offense, just play football, this is the NFL. Most teams will not beat themselves. Most teams will not beat
good
themselves.
teams won't.
Well, good
good
teams.
ones.
Right,
Good
right.
teams. Let's say that right.
Right.
Good teams won't allow you to beat them. Won't beat themselves.
The Eagles happen
So
to be
that-
playing about 5 of those in the first 6 or 7 weeks.
Exactly,
here.
right?
Yeah.
So we're not going to see turnovers. Usually bad teams just give you the ball.
Right.
And it's just not going that way
Yeah.
right now.
They don't blitz. They have one of the lowest blitz percentages
Yeah.
in the league. They have the lowest man-to-man coverage percentage. So it's basically up to this point. Okay, it's 3 games, but up to this point they've been pretty much a static defense.
Right.
Yeah.
I tell you something I always find ironic, and I'm not blaming anybody, it's just ironic to me. When you talk to coaches and players about what wins football games, some of the same themes come up. Third down offense and defense.
Right.
Red zone offense and defense, and the turnover battle, the turnover margin, right? But if you talk to a team like the Eagles who struggle to produce turnovers, you commonly get the response that, these things come in bunches, they're a little
Right.
bit happenstance. And so I see a dichotomy between you emphasize it and say it's important, but when it's not happening, you kind of dismiss it as just a byproduct of they come in
happenstance.
bunches or happenstance. There are some teams, I always think of the Lovie Smith coach teams, that were very good at producing turnovers because they practice it, they preach it, they had players like Peanut Tillman who
Yeah.
were just
Stripping the
excellent
ball.
at
Yep.
stripping the ball.
And it's energy. That's a little bit of energy, right? When you have a Peanut Tillman that's punching
Yeah.
the ball out, you know what's going to happen is Lance Briggs going to do it, and then Urlacher's going to do it, and then the safety's going to do it, right? So there is some energy with that, but again, there's effort. There is coaching that do that. You don't see our guys going and punching at balls. You don't see that. Usually we're chasing guys trying to just get them down.
Right.
So to me, it's a vanilla defense that will never produce a bunch of turnovers.
Well, it's certainly a defense I think we are trying to figure out what the identity is. I mentioned that
Both sides of the football.
Patrick Johnson, yeah, really both sides. Patrick Johnson all of a sudden started at Sam or played more snaps at Sam. Ryan Kerrigan, it seems like they're trying to play him as a 5 technique or a run-stopping
Well,
defensive end.
It's interesting you mentioned Patrick Johnson because I watched his college tape. He came out of Tulane. He was a pass rusher in college and a really good pass rusher. I actually liked his tape a lot.
Right.
And obviously the Eagles drafted him, 7th-round pick. It's not a given that you make the team, much less get snaps. And he's getting a lot of snaps.
Right.
But he was a pass rusher in college and obviously not being used that way.
Right. Same thing with Jannard Avery, right? Was a pass rusher.
Well,
who-
Jannard Avery was kind of both in college.
Okay.
He
In
also
the NFL,
played-
I know they kind of
Yeah, he's
viewed
kind
him
of
as that.
morphed in the NFL into being more of a pass rusher.
Right.
He's out of Memphis too, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a stack backer a good part of his career in Memphis as well.
Right. I mean, is it safe to say until the team has a little bit more of an identity and knows what it wants out of certain players, it's hard to expect them to just be out there picking off passes? I mean, of course, your D-line, like last week, is going to get you
The
your
D-line.
requisite amount of hurries and
Right.
occasionally a sack strip. But from the back end, where you tend to see more of your interceptions,
Aggressive, but you need to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Like you gotta make the play. Like send a blitz. Let's make a guy uncomfortable.
right.
That hurries the quarterback, makes him throw the ball faster than he normally would. The defender gets the chance to see it. The DB gets the chance to see it. Maybe pick a ball, but just sitting there it just does not happen. It does not happen. Patrick Mahomes can see a zone from a million years away.
Sure. Yeah, no, certainly. Has not happened for a while for the Eagles. I want to go back to the questions. Paul Mancini asked a really good question. We had talked about Devontae Smith a little bit earlier. What he wants to know is, do you guys see Devontae Smith as just a possession-type wide receiver where he's mostly catching the outs and the slants for the intermediary yards, or Can he be a deep threat? Is he strong enough to make
Good
plays
for
down
Greg
the
from
field?
his college tape. Did you see him go? Did they put him on
he
9
ran-
routes?
Yeah, he ran vertically in college a lot.
Okay.
But I think the way he does that in the NFL is getting him free access off the ball.
Scheme.
He's a
Scheme
strider.
Yeah.
He's not going to play through press man and get vertical.
So you got it.
Certainly not at this point in his career.
Right. How did Marvin Harrison handle press in his career? I mean, this is a guy who Devontae Smith has been kind of compared to.
A little quicker though.
He's quicker than. See, Smith to me is a long-legged stride. See, a lot of people made the comparison with Smith and Harrison. I don't know how you feel. I personally didn't see that comparison. I think Harrison. First of all, Harrison's weighed 25 pounds more. That's a huge difference. A huge difference. Okay, that's not a small number.
Small guy, yeah.
Okay, and Harrison was much quicker laterally. He had looser hips. Smith is not loose hipped. He's kind of a linear strider. So to me, they're totally different receivers.
Kind of a long strider in a short strider body. Oh, well, he has long legs, you said. But I mean,
Smith,
you look at him and you expect him to be that
Devontae
twitchier
Smith
guy.
stylistically, but he's not this guy at all.
Right.
In terms of, but stylistically, he's Randy Moss. He's a long strider. He just is 4 inches shorter and weighs 60 pounds less. But stylistically, he's that guy.
The same type of player.
Yeah.
The thing about it is just contact.
Yeah.
That's it. Therefore, you have to be more creative as a coach.
Well,
Therefore,
can he get stronger? Do you have to put
you
some,
can't.
some
Like
weight on
one,
him?
you know what's going to happen is that hopefully the competitive nature of Devontae Smith will cause him to put on 15, 20 pounds. Right? Of him going back and looking at his tape with the coach and saying, hey, if you were just a little bit stronger here, you can, and I think that's in him.
Right.
So do I think that it can happen? I don't think that he had to do it at Alabama, right? Because he was able to have coaching.
Right.
And they've had some superior offensive minds at Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
And he was lined up everywhere at Alabama.
Right.
He was in the slot half the time. He was moving around, all those things. We're just lining up in a position. Like I said, I think that the receiving core for the Eagles are out of position as it stands right now. That's what I say. I don't think that Devontae Smith, at this stage of his career, being as light as he is, he needs to be in the slot. Him or Reagor, but mainly him in the slot and have Quez on the outside. That's what I think.
Go from year 1 to year 2 physically. Was that a big maturity for your body? Did you put weight on?
I
Did you understand?
I didn't have that problem, right?
you
I was
naturally-
a fat receiver. So I was in college, in my freshman year, I was 206. So I always had to keep my weight down a little bit, right? So that wasn't a problem with me. Me, the nuance of trying to get guys to move out of their spot, not running around guys, knowing I'm not the fastest. I didn't have the ability to run around guys. I would never get past them, so you had to make them move out of their spot.
This sort of goes back a little bit to J-Jaw not being the guy he was supposed to be, right? That bigger possession, contested
Who
catch
was this
guy.
now?
I'm sorry, I said J-Jaw? I was talking about
J.J.
Arthega-Whiteside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've said this. They kind of right now. Your big receiver is Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but they missed that on the perimeter.
Well, they've missed that. They missed that.
To say the
No,
least.
they've missed. They've missed on a lot of good players at the position.
Because they've addressed the receiver position.
They've tried,
The
yeah,
question
exactly.
is, do these guys develop? That's the issue.
I
They've
still-
addressed it.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
brought a
drafted
ton of
a
receivers,
first
yeah.
rounder each of the last 2 years.
Right.
Then
They
they drafted
second round the year before that.
Whiteside was a second round pick.
Right.
So they've addressed the position.
Here's the question.
They've missed.
Right,
Great.
yeah.
We'll see.
Jason mentioned this in
missing.
passing. Should Quez Watkins guys play more? Should he be now, or should he get more targets? Because of course, as we've seen here lately, their passing game has not really been there. But does he deserve to get a lot of the snaps?
Me personally, I think Quez has shown himself for these 3 games of being a reliable guy. He's leading their team in receptions, and he's only got 7 receptions or so?
I think
He's
6 or 7.
Yeah, 6 or 7, and he's already at 200 yards. You know, so
91 of them on one play. But
yeah,
yes.
but I'm just saying he's showing up on the tape. He's showing up, and when you have a guy like that that's showing up, and with most teams, his reps are going to go up. But again, you got Devontae Smith, who's the first rounder. You got Jalen Reagor, who's the first rounder.
Right.
They're going to get first opportunity, right? Before Quez gets that opportunity. But at some point, if Quez continues to play well, you're going to have to say, do I go against my scouting department? Do I go against what the general manager is saying? Or do I go against, or do I do what's right as a coach, which is Quez is playing well, let's play him more.
So the Eagles are saying it's a personal issue for Lane, not his ankle. So just to
Okay,
clear that
okay,
up.
okay.
Personal issue?
Yeah.
That helps
I thought
me. That helps me.
Okay,
Personal
so
matter,
that's
yeah.
actually a huge issue.
Yeah,
It's
so-
not the ankle. That's
Right,
good.
Right, so at least we cleared that
And
up.
then
But still, it's a
not
shame.
good for today, better for the long
Well,
run.
something I'd
Hopefully
love to
it's
see the
okay.
Eagles do
Hopefully
more
it's
of
fine, yeah.
is what we talked about that the Chiefs do more and better than any team in the league, and that's line up in 1-by-3 sets.
Right.
Put 3 wide receivers out there, make Goddard the single receiver to the short side, because he can do that. He's athletic enough to do that. And then you could put Watkins, Smith, whatever, as the inside slot to trips. And you'll get those opportunities against linebackers, safeties. I'd like to see them do more of that.
Yeah, 7 for 7 this year.
Yeah.
7 catches on 7 targets. That's Quez.
Yeah.
I would like
If I see that as a coach, I'm going to try to get him more catches.
Or Gainwell with the speed package, which we saw in training camp, where they put Sanders and Gainwell on the field.
Definitely.
Or Sanders in the slot, vice versa. Gainwell needs to be a bigger factor as well.
I would like to see them put the ball in Jalen Reagor's hands differently, not just on down the field, but sort of the way the Niners use Deebo Samuel. But if they're really not going to do a whole lot of motion,
They did it in Atlanta.
Yeah, they did it once.
He screened and he scored.
Right. Right. So I'd like to see a little more of that, but they're also
in some
talking about.
ways, he's like Deebo Samuel, and in some ways, yeah.
In some ways.
He's not as strong.
Not quite as strong.
No,
His
I think
explosiveness
Sanders
is
freaking strong.
Yeah.
man.
His
Oh my
ability
God.
to take some small spaces and try to
Right,
pull
yeah,
it
yeah,
That
with-
touchdown catch that Reagor had, the jets that he put on,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You were the one against Atlanta?
Yes.
Oh, no, he showed some speed.
Yeah, some speed in
The
it.
speed's not the issue.
Technique
Alright.
is the issue.
Time to do what we do best here. Make our predictions.
Oh,
give our
boy.
players
Well,
of the
Delane
game.
Johnson,
I know the Delane
that's a
Johnson
little
thing.
bit
I don't think that
is
really
for
changes
everybody.
with my
no, my
prediction.
just my pick.
Mine may.
All right, before anybody out there makes a wager, if you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you got to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets. They've got this best bets computer model that scans over 350,000 unique bets a year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports, gives you the reason why you should make the bet, and they've got a model that covers everything from spreads to over-unders and player prop bets. If you don't want to use the model, you like to do the research yourself, BetQL's got the necessary tools for your betting research needs. They got everything from sharp data, the line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboards to track your success. So head to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also head to try.betql.co/ITB to get started with your 25% off discount at checkout using the promo code ITB on any of their subscription offerings. Check out their sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at any one of the many sportsbook listed. Don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this football season using BetQL. All right, let's start with everybody's player of the game, and certainly feel free, for the sake of the show and the graphics, if you want to recalibrate, just do it in your head, but stick to the script here, if you guys know what I'm saying.
I'm not changing anything.
All right, cool.
Do it.
Jason, who is your player of the game?
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, Patrick
Really
Mahomes.
went out on a limb there. Huh?
Hey, listen, I was right last week. So you stick with the quarterback.
That's true. You are right.
You're Dak, okay.
What kind? What kind of season is he? I know he's got 9 touchdown passes. Wasn't it you who said some people have said he's maybe doing a little bit different?
Greg, what did you? Fantasy points. I was pleased because I watched the tape, and something else Adam and I did during the week. I made my point about what the tape showed. And Adam said he's spoken to people in the league who say the same thing. The talent level is obviously superior, but he's been very much playing outside of structure. More and more so, it seems, with each game.
Okay.
And by the way, that's the reason he was not the #1 pick in the draft. There were concerns about that, which seems laughable now, given what he's done up to this point. But he's kind of moved in that direction. I think he's going to get back to playing a little more in structure. I think Andy Reid will help him with that this week. But he always can make plays outside
Very
of
quickly,
structure.
do you remember the pre-draft tape of 17? What you thought of him, if you can remember? What did you think then?
I remember thinking he was a super high-level talent and was just concerned about the fact that you can't draft a guy just based on his ability to run around and extend plays. And by the way, I spoke to a lot of coaches at the Combine that year, the year he came out, who expressed the same sentiment.
So did I.
Which is why he was the 10th pick in the draft. And obviously, like I said, it seems laughable now, but that was a major concern.
I'll say one quick thing, and I think I agree with what both of you guys are saying. they're still scoring a lot of points.
And
their defense is giving up 31 points a game.
And it's funny you say that. I said that on shows. I said people are going to tell me I'm an idiot because they still score a lot of points. I was evaluating him as an abstract individual player.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Is it up to the Patrick Mahomes standard that we've seen with him in the structure? No. But I think the problem for the Chiefs is mainly their defense.
Correct.
I would agree with that.
Adam, your player of the game was Miles Sanders.
It still is. I'm still going to stick with him because I am choosing to believe that Nick Sirianni will actually give him the ball more than 3 times this game. That's what I believe.
We shall see. We'll see if the Lane Johnson injury impacts that at all.
The personal matter.
I'm sorry, Lane Johnson, personal matter. Want to get that correct. Mine is Travis Kelce. I think he's going to have a big day against that Eagles zone. And Greg, you took Patrick Mahomes.
I went out on the limb too and took Patrick Mahomes.
The beauty of the show is you don't get points for being cunning, so it's fine to go and take
It's the first time you've used that word, by the way. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, we're going to get into our picks, but remember, Sundays are made for football at Rivers Casino in Philadelphia. Every Sunday from now until the end of the season, enjoy $7 food specials in Jack's Bar and Grill, half-price gourmet burgers at Hugo's Chop House, drink specials, and more. Not only that, but when the Eagles score, you score when you are actively planning with your Rush Rewards card in our Bird's Nest pit in front of the sportsbook. So remember, you can be a winner at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. It's where Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. $7 food specials. You cannot beat that at all. Can you beat the spread is the question for the Eagles today, because last I checked, although I haven't seen it in the last 5 or so minutes, but the line was Eagles are down, the underdog by 7. So I'm not sure if that has changed since the Lane Johnson report has come out.
If it hasn't, I'm going right over to the.
Yeah, over-under number was 51, so it's they're anticipating a lot of points. So I'll start with you, Greg. Who's winning this game?
I believe I picked Chiefs 34-13, did I not?
Correct, you did. Chiefs 34-13.
I can't believe I remember that because that was 2 days ago.
All right. I can't believe you didn't just do it 5 minutes before you showed up.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Greg says Chiefs win. Adam?
I've got it. Chiefs 27, Eagles 20. This is before the Lane Johnson situation, not playing today. I'm still picking the Chiefs. They're just the better team. I do believe they'll bounce back. But I do believe the players and coaches will respond better than they did last week. Look, could it be a blowout? Absolutely. The Chiefs have better talent. But are you really going to get blown out 2 games in a row in the National Football League? It's a lot to ask. Could it? Yeah. But I'm expecting them to show up at home and not get smoked. But I've been wrong before.
All right. I will finish it off by saying the Chiefs are going to win. I had 34-28. I kind of am with Adam. I do think a second straight blowout is kind of rare, even for the Eagles.
You're not getting Jason's pick? You said you're going to finish it
off.
off.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
I'm
just going to pick for you, Jack. No,
Q&A.
So yeah, I'll take the Eagles 34 to. I'm sorry, Chiefs 34, Eagles 28.
I scored
Jason,
game for Mosher. Shocker.
Yeah, I think I went 34-17.
Okay. I believe you did.
I think I went 34-17 Chiefs. And if the line is still 7, I'm headed over to the sports book.
You can do that here. Yes. You can do that here at Rivers and or on your BetRivers app, however you want you put your money down. Do it with Rivers Casino in Philadelphia, and you can get all your statistical trends and data at BetQL. All right, big thanks to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. Thanks to Sky Motor Cars, BetQL, Rebel Hill and Public Square Productions. Everybody for watching. Please, please, please listen out for the next Inside the Birds podcast. It'll drop Monday morning, 6 a.m. Listen for Q&A Thursday morning, 6 a.m. And no matter what you do, no matter what the score is, everybody have a great day. We'll catch up with you all soon. Enjoy the game, everyone.